Nancy held her breath. Bai Yilan and Frost were no exception. The god's son himself was already terrifying to them. Extraordinarily powerful, standing at the pinnacle of the new generation pyramid. Let alone the god's son who has broken through to sequence 6, this terrifying domain, this unbelievable ability. Besides trembling hearts, everyone was also filled with a frantic light. They must cling to this Polaris from the infinite divine star, the son of the divine country, at any cost. After all, in the entire confrontation between the abyss and the present world, the power of chaotic order is instead the most formidable and also the safest, just very hard to unify cohesively. The infinite divine star is one of the massive outer god forces within it. However, they have not yet moved closer. Because even though the divine sons have momentarily escaped, things are far from over. That young man standing beside Yang Jian has yet to be dealt with. But it's only a matter of a few breaths. After the breakthrough to sequence 6, the terrifying power gap infinitely widened. And Polaris's gaze towards Su Qi did not seem to bear hostility, yet it still suffocated countless people. Su Qi, on the other hand, frowned slightly, as a strange force enveloped him. However, in the next moment it could proceed no further. Polaris's eyes flashed. "You guy, I still can't see through you. So, this is why you want to turn me into some kind of weird thing." Su Qi extended his finger and flicked it lightly. The force that had just shrouded around his body shattered in the blink of an eye. And Polaris silently watched all this, gradually withdrawing his domain, the massive star rings retrieved. He knew Su Buxian was not simple. From the very beginning of their encounter, he had vaguely felt this, never once taking the lead, and after entering that previous world, he had completely become a fugitive unable to make any impact, even being saved by Su Buxian, and afterward unable to find him. As an infinite divine star, son of the divine country, for the first time felt the inability to catch up with someone else, feeling the limelight and initiative completely gripped. This was one of the catalysts that led him to decide to break through sequence 6 after coming out. And now, upon his breakthrough to sequence 6, he immediately unfolded his newly acquired domain, although newly acquired, not quite adept nor fully nurtured. But the changes in the divine sons just now were enough to demonstrate the power of this domain, even though it was only sustained for a brief 1 or 2 breaths of time. Before being cleansed by the divinity of the divine sons, the domain nevertheless covered more than 30 people. The weakening was quite normal. And most importantly, just a moment ago, Polaris tried to play a little trick on Su Buxian using the power of the domain, but found that it had no effect on the other party at all. This guy either is stronger than me, or possesses something akin to divinity within him, even stronger than the combined power of more than 30 divine sons. Su Buxian, what kind of person are you exactly? Su Qi, good question, but didn't I just say it, although I don't mind saying it again. All right, no need to say it. Polaris immediately interrupted. This guy doesn't have much truth to his words. Seems like he's not planning to say anything. However, the less he speaks, the more curious I become. I like interesting things. Seldom have things aroused my curiosity. After all, being the son of the divine country of the infinite divine star, I myself can change indefinitely. He looked deeply at Su Qi, a smile appearing. Su Buxian, I will definitely uncover your secret. Su Qi also smiled. Actually, you could easily get the answer by paying a little price. Didn't I just say, the Hustlers sect can provide a variety of services, whether dealing with urgent affairs or probing into various gossip. Polaris's ears felt tingling from the talk. This guy talks too much. Yang Jian looked at Polaris, then at Su Qi, slightly retracted the gun tip, squinted his eyes, muttering, "You two know each other?" "Yes," Su Qi said softly. "Let me introduce you. This is Polaris, you can call him Xiao Bei. But now that he is sequence 6, to avoid offense, calling him Bei is also fine." Yang Jian? No, I wasn't asking about my bros. Why are you answering, turning heaven and earth upside down, aren't you? Polaris coughed. You'll get used to it. This guy is just like that. But now's not the time to talk about this. We've made quite a commotion. And after I broke through to sequence 6, Polaris paused slightly. I've violated the rules here. Punishment may come our way. Let's leave here first. Yang Jian nodded, the gun tip flickering, whispered, "Water escape." The next moment, ripples appeared beneath the three's feet, all set to leave directly through this water ripple. Su Qi raised an eyebrow, looked at Bai Yilin and the others, then after a slight smile, he disappeared together with the other two, leaving behind the terrifying ruins around. As if washed by massive artillery, this large area turned into scorched earth, along with the silence and sighs in the eyes of the numerous forces left behind. Gone. What a pity. They regretted not making a connection with them, but did not stop after all. Their gathering here was because two sons of the divine race were seeking partners. Didn't specify how many, nor specify any standards. But it's obvious they too need to gather power. After all, Sequence 6 is only temporary. The fact that they can break through indicates that soon others will successively break through as well. And at that time, facing forces with deep foundations and gathered might, even if the two heirs of the divine race are strong, they cannot be opponents. Therefore, that is why every top force has come here. Su, the sect hierarch, has been taken away. Frost initially wanted to call Su Buxian, but instead called him Hierarch because everything that happened just now represented that they had joined the Hustlers sect, and everything Su Buxian unleashed fully received their approval. This just unexpectedly encountered a stronger heir of the divine race, one who has broken through Sequence 6. Yuning said quietly, "I advise you not to have too high hopes, but don't worry too much either. This won't truly result in death. It's just that identity will be downgraded after dying." He is a thinker of dark tendencies, always considering the worst outcomes. He, at the last moment of departure, the members of the Pop Alliance also sighed lightly, still gave us a reassuring smile. This calm demeanor in the face of danger is an act of great righteousness. I begin to approve of our sect hierarch. Bai Yilin listened to the discussions of the crowd. He was somewhat doubtful. Why does it feel a bit off? Where is the tension between the two heirs of the divine race and Brother Su? And all of this, Nancy remained silent, holding his peace, because he knew what Su Qi was doing by looking towards their side at the end. It was to transmit a message to him. In your trash basket, I left a Starfire chip with a coordinate guide. Head in that direction and lead everyone safely there to stand by. That guy is acting as a hands-off manager again? Nancy gritted his teeth. However, he looked at his basket, reached out to feel, and indeed found an almost imperceptible particle of starfire. He picked it up and looked, couldn't make sense of it, applied slight pressure. The next moment, the starfire chip directly transformed into nanoscale particles, merging into the surface of his skin, becoming a pattern. At the same time, he also saw the interface revealed by the Starfire chip. Nancy showed some change in expression. That guy. Seems he wasn't just being a hands-off manager. This seems to be a super-evolved version of the Super Dreamchild protocol. But most of the functions are gray, like pie in the sky. Nancy bypassed those functions, looking at the coordinates left by Su Qi. He raised his head slightly. This place. Looking towards the distant palace. Why didn't you let me go straight to the top? Nancy sighed. Complaints aside, but what can he do, since he is the sect hierarch? Moreover, this time, he truly saw Su Qi's real strength, surprisingly able to match with the heirs of the divine race, although he couldn't tell whether that heir of the divine race was using all his power. But that was enough. The potential and strength of the sect hierarch of the Hustler sect are both strong enough. The future is undoubtedly promising. Certainly if Su Buxian were here, he would laugh happily. Real strength? Tools like the ping-pong paddle and silence of all things, these aren't even commonly used. He still has a lot of hidden cards untouched. And at this moment, Su Qi was appearing with the two in a space. Here everywhere immortal energy floated. A massive south heavenly gate stood connecting the sky dome, the stairs densely covered in jade stones, shimmering with astonishing aura. The reason he appeared here was because Bei Xinxing wanted to discuss a big matter with him. So when Yang Jian pulled him with water escape, he didn't resist. He could roughly guess what the two wanted to do. The space fragments here, the style quite immortal, Su Qi commented, but too desolate, lacking vitality. This is no mere space fragment, Yang Jian said softly. It's a connected small world, hidden here. Yang Jian slowly pointed the tip of his spear. It is the heavenly court. The entire space transformed. Thick immortal energy like clouds began to dissipate. At this moment Su Qi finally saw this tremendous heavenly court, full of ruin, broken remnants, numerous battle debris, a scene of desolation, tragic downfall. Su Qi looked at this scene, yet was not surprised, spoke softly. However, I can sense there are many sleeping auras, waiting to be revived. Su Qi paused. So, this is the big matter you are planning. But why involve me? This is one of the big matters. Bei Xinxing said softly. Yang Jian needs to revive the heavenly court. He and I are longtime friends. Naturally, I must assist. Su Qi said, Aren't you the son of the divine country of infinite divine star? Then can't you leverage your backing? Bei Xinxing shook his head. Now I can confirm that your understanding of the divine race is not deep, especially infinite divine star. There the chaotic camp, although named divine country, gathered countless outer gods. Yet, it's not that simple. Bei Xinxing shook his head, tightened his fist. To leverage other powers of the divine country requires paying more. Even my father. Su Qi nodded. I understand, similar to allied forces. Except currently the leader is your father. The power isn't solely controlled by his father. Outer gods are more like components, internally also complex. Different from other divine race. Monarchic rule. I also need to prove myself. Bei Xinxing spoke softly. So involving me is. We don't require too much greed, no heart of strength, only for ambitious profiteers to join. Therefore never gathered forces around like other heirs of the divine race. Bei Xinxing spoke softly. Because I know this isn't reliable, just opportunistic weaklings. Once in a declining period, they would defect at any time, betrayers. Yang Jian's expression slightly sunk, spoke in a low voice. Su Qi, looks like awareness shapes choices. You both seem to have been through bad experiences. Bei Xinxing is due to reasons of the divine country. Internally, though, everyone calls him the son of the divine country, but in reality lacks any status in the chaotic camp, only competes in secret control and struggle. If his father falls, he would instantly plummet into the abyss. And for Yang Jian it's even simpler. After the decline of the heavenly court, once tight forces all left one by one. Though he possesses great potential and strength, due to the heavenly court being a giant treasure trove, he doesn't have anyone he can trust, except Bei Xinxing. I understand. Su Qi paused. You have your eyes on my kindness, honesty, optimism, cheerfulness, chivalry. Yang Jian. It's because of my third eye. Yang Jian couldn't bear it, interrupting Su Qi's self-praise. The eye on his forehead slightly opened. When my eye opens, I can see the future. During battle it shows what will happen in the next few seconds, while outside battle, it's able to see the trajectory of fate, though it's only probability, not a certain path. On you, however, Su Qi curiously said, What did you see? I saw nothing. Yang Jian slowly shook his head, uttering these words. You're even more unpredictable than Brother Bei claimed, which is why upon knowing my transmission, he couldn't help but test you. He wasn't intentional. Bei Xinxing coughed once. But in fact, he did it intentionally, just failed to mess with him. So, Bei Xinxing spoke softly, Su Buxian, do you understand now? Thanks to Yang Jian's eye, we can see many future marks. So never have had top forces cooperating with us. Fate trajectory points to. Yet you have no marks, implying limitless possibilities. He revealed a confident smile. I favor such limitless possibilities. Hence, we decided to let you join. Bei Xinxing spread his arms. With a confident smile and the spiritual force of the divine race heirs. Join our plan to transcend the future. It will bring you to unimaginable big stages. Su Qi watched the Bei Xinxing, whose wings spread like a giant rock, unmoved by it. In fact, when he entered here, he pretty much knew what these two guys wanted to do: pull him into their alliance. However, what's even more interesting is he also had the same idea of recruiting the two of them. Isn't this a coincidence? And the identity of these two people is just right. One carries the burden of a shattered heavenly court, while the other, although holding the title of son of the divine country, actually has an unstable status with power emptied, coveted by countless people, yet also watched by many. Su Qi didn't hurry, but chuckled gently. So, what is the stage I can't imagine? Yang Jian and Bei Xinxing exchanged a glance. The latter slowly uttered a few words. Abyss, world tree, the future. I don't understand. Don't be so cryptic. Make it clearer. Bei Xinxing. Isn't it more atmospheric like this? And if it were other divine sons, they would understand instantly. It seems you really haven't interacted with other divine sons before. Yang Jian. We want to hold destiny in our own hands. I lean on the heavenly court, and Bei Xinxing leans on the main forces of the divine country to establish a brand new alliance. Unlike other gods' sons, who engage in trivialities, but an alliance capable of confronting the abyss and the god's palace in the future. So, Su Buxian. Bei Xinxing spoke slowly. This is the big thing we are doing. We will confront all sorts of unimaginable powerful enemies. Even step into the vortex of the abyss. Are you afraid? His eyes were like torches, looking at Su Buxian. He extended an invitation to Su Qi, thereby naturally acknowledging his various abilities. This was a venture concerning their own fate, and every step needed careful consideration. He felt Su Buxian should have this ability. He was only afraid he lacked the courage. I see. Su Qi gently said. This is your plan. How about it? Bei Xinxing smiled slightly. Su Qi gave a thumbs up. Great imagination. ? It seemed like a compliment, but not precisely. Using eyes that can see the trajectory of destiny to plan everything thereafter, it seems like casting stones to find the way. Yang Jian said calmly. We naturally have all sorts of preparations. A shattered heavenly court, though endowed with endless strength, attracts countless covetous eyes. A son of the divine country with no real power, boasting a high status, yet also watched by countless eyes within the divine country. With such a setup, Su Qi shook his head. You are not competitors, but coveted prizes. I can understand why you are unwilling to easily accept other top forces, gathering various divine sons, because you are also afraid. Yang Jian and Bei Xinxing said nothing, but their expressions weren't very good. Because Su Qi was right. This is also why, from the beginning, Bei Xinxing was always alone, unlike other divine sons, who have a bunch of Taoist guardians and abundant resources pouring in. Even in the infinite divine star, the outer god's son has more influence and resources than him. This is quite unusual, but also very logical. After all, currently all gods, demigods, and ancient entities in the infinite divine star are still asleep. In this chaotic place where various forces mix, it's not the same. Moreover, Su Qi also gathered quite a bit of information from the question mark. In other words, Bei Xinxing's father, the Lord of Divine Country, probably encountered great trouble on the path to revival. After all, everything is still asleep, and the Divine Country is in a leaderless state. Things are not that simple. Bei Xinxing probably bears a very heavy burden as well. We have no such word as afraid. Yang Jian said calmly. On this path, there are only those who live or die, no retreaters. Seems like a battle freak. What your eyes can see, you yourself cannot see. Yang Jian, is this guy saying I'm brawny but brainless? Su Qi paused. Then Xiao Bei, how do you see the likelihood of your plan's success, the specifics of implementation, and the challenges, and also, although he is a son of the divine country, maneuvering within the chaos of the divine country, he should also have some savvy. Bei Shenxing directly intercepted in a deep voice. First of all, my friggin' name is Bei Shenxing. Secondly, he softly said, our plan. We'll make decisive adjustments according to various changes. It's not something unattainable, but rather guided by divinity and power. Su Qi picked up a notebook, writing, so, you're relying on your own divinity to seek advantage and avoid harm, along with Old Yang's eyes to probe traces of a future that fits the current changes, possessing a grand framework and vision, with great confidence. All right, I understand. He looked at the notebook. No, what are you writing there? Bei Shenxing said, looking at the densely packed numbers. I don't understand what you're writing. And what are your intentions? Bei Shenxing softly said, I can see your character. You definitely wouldn't miss such an opportunity. Naturally, the Hustlers sect has never feared hardship, and weren't you asking what I was writing? Su Qi flipped through his notebook, tapping it with a pen. Based on the standards of the Hustlers sect, we customize goals according to the different clients, estimating their difficulty. I've just calculated the goal of your demand, the value required for payment. Once paid, I will lead the Hustlers sect to help you achieve it. Bei Shenxing? This guy is surprisingly unpredictable. Is he now doing business? Yang Jian shook his head. Although I've heard Bei Shenxing mention it, I truly still didn't expect it to be so unconventional. However, let's not joke around. Let's talk about the important stuff, as our time is limited. Su Qi closed his notebook and adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses. Who said I'm joking? Bei Shenxing? Even though I don't know when you put on those glasses, but... He looked serious. Are you treating our words too lightly? Su Buxian. I sincerely recognized you and invited you here. I know, it's just that the truth can be a bit harsh. Your plan, in my view, is not at all sufficient to face future risks. Without mentioning the other sons of God. Su Qi said calmly. Based on this alone, wanting to establish your own camp in the chaotic present world, not only to stand on the big stage but also to be wary of countless covetous eyes, and still want to claim a piece of the meat at the abyss mouth, I think. It's not feasible. It's like an inexperienced young master starting a business, trying to make it into the global top 500. You're just drawing vision after vision, and it's not like my visions smell better either. Yang Jian's emotions fluctuated, his eyes blazing, and he raised the tip of his gun calmly. Even though you and Bei Shenxing are friends, I cannot accept such words. I'm just a person who loves to speak the truth. Su Qi smiled slightly. Instead of following through with your plan, it would be better to join the Hustlers sect's Starfire plan. Su Qi paused. It has much more potential. Bei Shenxing gritted his teeth. This guy, I can't stand it. Yang Jian, go ahead. You must teach him a lesson. Yang Jian said calmly. Indeed, I would like to duel with him. Battle intent surged in his eyes. Su Qi waved his hand. Fighting and killing aren't good. Personal combat power has very little influence in such a chaotic situation. This is the honest truth. All along, apart from pursuing personal interests, personal strength has significant value, but when it comes to the overall layout, the changes in all the forces. It's all about connections and background. Stop the nonsense. Yang Jian was denied again, his eyes blazing with golden light. Come fight. Bei Shenxing raised his head. Su Buxian, regardless of other matters, I kindly remind you, once Brother Yang Jian's fighting spirit soars, it's not easy to stop, and what you've seen before wasn't even his real strength. Su Qi shook his head, dodging the golden light, which crashed into the distance, raising huge waves of immortal energy. He said, why bother? But Yang Jian's momentum, his voice was as grand as Hong Zhong, bringing a variety of extraordinary visions, stirring up endless immortal energy. You've rejected us, provided your plan, saying personal combat power isn't important, we couldn't convince you, but the same, if you wish to convince me, you need to show me your strength. Use combat to convince, is it? As expected from the infamous battle maniac, respecting the supremacy of combat. The third eye and the golden light on Yang Jian's body all centered on him. explosively radiating wave after wave of ripples. I won't hold back, and every strike will be with my full strength. Likewise, fighting here, I have the natural advantage, so I won't make it hard for you. As long as you can fight me for 100 breaths. He raised his head, and the calm words he spoke stirred waves of spiritual force. Huge amounts of immortal energy were unleashed. Then I'll listen to your words. Bei Xinqing looked at this scene. This is bad. Brother Yang Jian's battle spirit couldn't be stopped. He also got ready. After all, he's sequence 6. If Brother Yang Jian doesn't pull back, he could still save Su Buxian. Su Qi, however, kept shaking his head. The Hustlers sect is a harmonious and loving organization. It never advocates violence. And as a sect hierarch, I lead by example. I never like to make enemies or fight. Stop the nonsense. Yang Jian has already exploded into action. The terrifying speed bringing intense golden light, directly attacking Su Qi. Bei Xinqing shook his head. Su Buxian, this guy, finally met his match. After all, I usually listen to this guy's nonsense a lot, can still manage my emotions relatively well, plus I'm also a person who enjoys fun. But Brother Yang Jian is different. He's not good with words, but excels in combat. It's good too. To curb Su Buxian's arrogance, if I wasn't sequence 6, many wouldn't have dealt with this guy because we're not on the same level. Acting against him wouldn't look good, otherwise I would have already beaten him up. Boom! Yang Jian has already erupted with the spear tip, attacking towards Su Qi. The terrifying strength not at all the same level as before. His third eye was blazing with golden light, with strong suppression power surrounding Su Qi from all directions. While Bei Xinqing looked at the still unmoved Su Qi, who seemed to have more to say with his open mouth, he shook his head. Su Buxian, full of flaws. At this point, there's really no chance to dodge, that I can see the traces of his movement in the next few seconds, plus, there's also Yang Jian's own bloodline bringing its inherent magic ban. Probably on first contact. Bang! A figure was sent flying backward. The speed was as fast as a meteor. It crashed into a broken platform shrouded in immortal energy with a thunderous boom. A massive impact was unleashed. A deafening crash resounded, accompanied by hundreds of meters of immortal energy vibrations. Indeed, in a flash, I already said I don't like fighting. Why insist on forcing me to strike? Su Qi's calm voice suddenly came from a direction that shouldn't be his. Bei Xinqing's eyes widened suddenly, his pupils contracting. At this moment, Su Buxian stood where he was, one foot raised, his expression calm, and even patted the dust off his pant leg with his hand. He said lightly, I said it already, don't fight. Fighting is not good. Bei Xinqing was shocked, watching this scene. What's going on? Brother Yang Jian was kicked away. His shock was unparalleled. Of course, he knew Brother Yang Jian's strength. Although his own sequence 6 strength should suppress him slightly as of now, if they were of the same level, he would definitely not be his match in a head-to-head battle. And yet this guy just kicked him with just one kick, and he hasn't even recovered yet. Brother Yang Jian also seems somewhat stunned. Now, can I convince you? Su Qi asked with a smile. Su Buxian, this guy. He stared intently at Su Qi, yet the fluctuations on his body weren't that intense. Even with his sequence 6, he couldn't see through the other's spiritual energy and strength aura. Boom! And at the next moment, Yang Jian's figure erupted again, suddenly appearing from the place where the crash had just occurred. This time, terrifying phenomena seemed to connect with the surrounding shattered heavenly court. The sound of dragon roars from the divine beast erupted. Yang Jian growled, It's not over yet. Ah! However, Su Qi didn't explode in response and just gently shook his head. He lifted his foot again. Yang Jian's third eye stared intently. This time, he seemed to see the traces of the foot's movement a few seconds later. He hadn't paid much attention earlier, but now he naturally had to dodge with all his might, as this guy's strength is outrageous. And the next moment, boom! Yang Jian's body trembled once again, flying out as swiftly as a meteor. This time, Bei Xinqing clearly saw that guy is fast. Moreover, the strength is overpowering. Yang Jian couldn't react at all, just directly knocked away by a blow. Why is it called a blow? Because at this very moment, Su Qi was holding a baseball bat, wearing a baseball cap, in a stance like he was playing baseball. This guy, he's even playing baseball now. And Su Qi even raised his hand to his forehead to look ahead. The next moment, boom! Yang Jian crashed again into the same spot as before. This time the immortal energy scattered, revealing the scene inside. Yang Jian once again landed precisely in that pit. Tisk, nice shot. Su Qi smiled slightly. Bei Xinxing's pupils shrank suddenly. Even that was within this guy's calculations. Su Qi looked at him and gave a harmless smile. Now, can we have a proper discussion? Bei Xinxing remained silent, because he began to feel that things were getting a bit out of control. At this moment, Yang Jian's entire body tingled. Lying in that pit, somewhat bedraggled, his gaze fixed dazedly at the sky dome. He is heaven's chosen son, the strongest of the new generation through heavenly court's history, representing the hope of the future master of heaven. All his frenzied battles have been just to hone his bloodline. This boiling battle spirit and powerful force in his veins are what he believes to be the hope of revival. He once thought that one day he would lose to someone of the same rank, but at least in the future he would become a god or even a more powerful figure of high order. Yet, unexpectedly here, he was easily defeated. No, I can't call it defeated. I couldn't even touch the hem of that guy's clothes. Though I still have many trump cards, sequence abilities, and even legendary items unused, purely in terms of spiritual energy, I used my eyes yet couldn't be a match. This was a huge blow to him. However, the next moment, his dim heart suddenly regained a bit of hope, because, at this very moment, his friend, who had broken through to sequence level 6, Bei Xinxing, was unexpectedly also battling Su Buxian, and, for a moment, the two were evenly matched. His eyebrows trembled violently. He suddenly sat up. Understand that Bei Xinxing is sequence level 6. This is the final threshold to transcendence and can easily look down upon all life below sequence 6, with a massive gulf between it and sequence 7. Domain, spiritual force, path of series all would possess suppressive power. If he were to face an ordinary sequencer, he might be able to fight for more than 10 breaths, but would quickly be suppressed by the overpowering force, not to mention Bei Xinxing. Yet that guy actually fights against him, and the battle is extremely fierce. And at this moment, Bei Xinxing cursed more vehemently. I merely said one sentence that wasn't okay, and you actually came at me directly? Isn't it true you don't like fighting? Su Qi paused. Suddenly thought using force to convince others is not bad, even though you love to talk nonsense. But, Bei Xinxing, have you forgotten I am now sequence level 6, even if your battle strength is strong, we are not of the same rank. If it weren't for considering it's too bullying to you, I'd go all out now. Right now, he is merely defending against Su Qi's attacks, not yet counterattacking. Moreover, upon clashing with Su Qi, he realized one thing: Su Buxian's control of spiritual energy is extremely perfect and perverted. Every bit of spiritual energy seems to unleash all its effects, which is incredibly astonishing, able to perfectly control consumption, a completely different battle style. Know that their battles are always grand, apart from partly due to the reason of spiritual force on the body. Another point is, spiritual energy cannot perfectly transform into battle power, integrate into one's body, strength, power, explosion. Therefore, one often turns that uncontrollable strength into power outside the body. Moreover, this guy's spiritual energy reserve seems quite terrifying. This guy seems to have difficulty finding opponents of the same rank, but don't forget, I am already sequence level 6. Bei Xinxing ultimately shook his head, sighed, extended his hand. Then I won't hold back. The next moment, suddenly, the domain of the infinite star ring unfolds again. Numerous planets within the star ring rotate like a map's miniature. The difference of this vast strength isn't something spiritual energy can replace. A higher sequence, a completely different concept and level. All forces will have amazingly peculiar changes, with extraordinary blessings on the path of Sequence 6. The next moment, clearly within the holographic illusion-like star ring, a planet actually began to emerge with cracked fallen meteors. In its star map, they start to separate. Boom, boom, boom. Above the three's heads, throughout the vast white boundless sky dome of the heavenly court, a massive meteor suddenly fell in the sky above Star Ring. A giant black shadow carried a roaring crash, terrifying, dreadful oppression, undoubtedly suffocating. Bei Xinxing softly murmured, "And this is my Sequence 6 strength." Su Qi slightly raised his head, he also extended his hand. "If that's the case, then this is my Sequence 7 strength." Upon saying this, with them at the center within thousands of meters, the entire space suddenly changed. Magic Cube Domain directly unfolds, split into Rubik's Cube cubes, spinning frantically, transforming. Moreover, countless long swords plunged from the sky dome, accompanied by the gentle hum of sword sounds, with vast giant swords directly piercing through the long rainbow. In this instant, the massive mountain land-like meteor was cleaved by a single sword. Moreover, countless Rubik's Cube cubes whirred, with all large falling meteors instantly crushed to powder. Bei Xinxing's expression tensed. Su Qi, however, had already snapped his fingers. Bei Xinxing just felt his consciousness suddenly plunge into darkness. A terrifying mental oppression made him breathless. The deadly sensation of danger made his divinity shake madly. Yet it was tightly suppressed. Divinity couldn't escape, as if there was a colossal existence in the darkness. In another instant, Bei Xinxing growled lowly, unleashing all divinity contained within his bloodline. Bang! At this moment, he abruptly broke through the darkness, seeing a gun barrel pressed against his forehead, and what greeted his eyes was Su Buxian's harmless smile. "If I had taken action just now." Su Qi retracted his grip on the Desert Eagle. "It's a good thing I'm a nice person." Bei Xinxing gasped for breath, with deep apprehension in his eyes. What was that just now? Such terrifying spiritual power, as if he had fallen into the abyss. There was a terrifying projection within it watching him. "Su Buxian, who exactly are you? This is definitely not a power that an ordinary person without any background could possess." Su Qi looked at the somewhat agitated expression of Bei Xinxing and smiled gently. "If you want to know, then you should seriously consider my proposal. After all, the Hustlers sect is a future great sect that embraces diversity. It's not like I haven't probed." Bei Xinxing looked at Su Qi. "Currently, the Hustlers sect probably only has a few hundred people, including the group of people you previously received there. I can see that too. A force of a few hundred people. In an ordinary native world, it wouldn't even count as a major sect. At most, it could be considered a club, let alone in the present world. A slightly larger planet-level force would count its believers by the billions, with at least several thousand core members. Not to mention, constant star-level, galaxy-level forces. No need to rush. Surviving in such a world doesn't rely on strength nor numbers, but rather," Su Qi said calmly, "background." Bei Xinxing rolled his eyes at him. "How come our background isn't as significant as the Hustlers' sect's background?" Su Qi smiled and remained silent, simply saying softly, "Have you thought it over?" Bei Xinxing slowly put away his strength, and Yang Jian also stepped forward. Goodness gracious. Now the side that needs to consider it has become him. Bei Xinxing just wanted to shake his head. Such a big decision can't be made on a whim, nor in just a few words. "Su Buxian, I will consider your proposal, but..." And at this moment, it was interrupted not by Su Buxian, but by Yang Jian. "We will join your plan." Bei Xinxing looked at Yang Jian, revealing an expression of disbelief. "Brother Yang Jian, you?" He suddenly noticed that the eye on Yang Jian's forehead was still open and displaying an astonishing crimson. "I have seen hope from you." Yang Jian looked at Su Qi. "If there is a key in this destiny trajectory searching for something, I believe it is you." This time, it was Su Qi's turn to be somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected this outcome. He originally thought it would be more troublesome, like before, requiring some gambling to slowly trap them in. But now, it seemed something beyond his expectations had happened. Bei Shenxing, on the other hand, was even more shocked as he looked at Yang Jian. Brother Yang Jian. Yang Jian slowly put away his spear. What you said before, we all know actually. Our various plans and preparations to reach that future stage and achieve our goals are extremely difficult. The destiny trajectories I see are generally elusive and uncertain, and even those connected are just strands of spider silk in the whirlwind. One wrong step and the silk breaks, the person dies. Since every path, trajectory, or trace I see seems to lead to a dead end, then the only way out. Yang Jian's third eye shimmered brightly as he calmly stated, is in the unpredictable places. Bei Shenxing furrowed his brows. To be honest, they were proceeding carefully with every step. This time bringing in Su Buxian was sudden, but not without reason, such as the nature of seeking profit and avoiding harm associated with divine nature, or Brother Yang Jian's guidance from his eye. Yet now, Brother Yang Jian made a sudden direct decision, which was too abrupt, but his calm and firm expression could not be fake. It seemed, those eyes have seen something else too. Bei Shenxing hesitated internally, as this was not an easy decision to make. But now he seems to be forced into it. He slightly pressed his lips together. All right, we agree. To form an alliance with you and the Hustlers sect behind you, we will discuss and deploy all plans and actions together as a trio. The two words here are cooperation. Bei Shenxing conceded, but didn't fully concede. After all, right now, even if they are limited, the resources, background, and connections they possess far exceed that of the Hustlers sect of Su Buxian. Su Qi, however, didn't refuse. I have no objection to cooperation, but a team always needs someone at the helm, just like a plane needs a navigator. You know, ever since I was a child, I loved to pretend to be a captain and loved to fly planes, so it seems that it's best for me. Is that even the same thing? Bei Shenxing glared at Su Qi. Besides, this is cooperation, and doing so would undoubtedly weaken the decision-making power of the other two. This guy is clearly digging a pit for them, with ambitious intents clearly visible. He wanted to directly reject it. After all, he didn't want to be under someone else. Su Qi shrugged but changed his tone, smiling. Then how about this? Our grand endeavor, similar to the top elite forces among other gods' sons, aims to ascend to that great stage, and the prerequisite for ascending the stage is to ascend to a councilman, to own a palace. You all are working towards this too, right? Yang Jian said nothing, while Bei Shenxing squinted his eyes. Su Buxian was correct indeed. Becoming a councilman, residing in a palace, was the key to ascending the final great stage, having the qualification to compete. This is why so many gods' sons are gathering various forces, because becoming a councilman, residing in a palace, is not that simple. After all, until now, the gods' palace and abyss have only occupied more than 40 palaces in total. And each palace they own is accompanied by a complete jurisdiction from the mountain foot to the mountaintop, from low to high. So it represents more affiliated forces that can stay in and equally ascend with one to the final great stage. This is also the reason why divine sons chose to cooperate with God's sons and why massive forces pledged allegiance. They want to reside in the jurisdiction, so they can join the God's sons who become councilmen to enter together. So what do you plan to do? Bei Shenxing raised his eyebrow. Councilman. Yang Jian seemed to understand. He gently said, it's about seeing who among the three of us becomes a councilman first, taking control of a palace so as to master the key decision. Su Qi snapped his fingers. That's how it is. Yang Jian said calmly. But are you sure? This is quite disadvantageous to you. Because the two of us are already at B rank status, about to advance to A rank, we expect to reach S rank by the start of the town slaughter day. Plus we also meet one of the prerequisites to become a councilman, which is possessing strong divine power. This is a prerequisite to becoming a councilman, having enough strong personal value, with the palace itself determining the qualification to become a councilman. And the councilmen appearing from God's palace and the abyss are almost all priests, demons, either with powerful bloodlines or having extraordinary sequences. Therefore, the god's sons became the core of team building. Su Qi paused. It's not a big problem. I have a heart that shines like gold. Bei Shenxing. Then you can slowly shine everything else aside, but this one bet between the two of us, it's already pretty much locked in. Leading a multitude of powerful adventurers while overcoming all obstacles, coupled with their formidable sequence abilities, easily breaking rules, avoiding traps, completing tasks flawlessly, without any mistakes, they've gained a massive amount of points, their advancement speed being among the top even within the God's Sons category. It's just under 10 days before obtaining the councilman status, taking residence in a palace, having their own jurisdiction, and it's why they recently signaled to the outside world their intent to gather forces. By the way, Yang Jian said, closing his eyes and looking outside. Now that we've also left that place, the withered world tree strength hasn't caught up with us. As Bei Shenxing forcibly broke through the restriction, Sequence Ability 6 was not allowed to be present, so the remaining withered power was about to exact punishment on him. And Yang Jian brought them in here, no matter what. So it was settled in such a confused manner. Although Bei Shenxing instinctively sensed something wrong, he was still very confident. After all, their promotion speed was extremely fast, and it was easiest to gain the palace's recognition. Just imagine. Though the God's Palace and Abyss have been here for a long time, they still only hold a few seats. All right, Bei Shenxing said softly. Since we've reached a collaboration and subsequent wager, let's not communicate with other top forces for now. So where are we heading next? To the palace at the mountaintop. I've already instructed the members of the Hustlers sect to head there, Su Qi said gently. Question mark. Bei Shenxing was taken aback. Why go there? We aren't prepared or qualified to tread that path yet. The place above the palace can be reached. It will have more dangerous rules and higher-level tasks, earning more points. But it also requires at least an A-level identity to accept the tasks. Currently, it's the main contention area for Abyss and God's Palace. It's too early for them to go now. After all, they don't have an A-level identity yet. Bei Shenxing suddenly fell silent. His eyes froze, staring blankly at Su Qi drawing an envelope with a world tree leaf pattern from his pocket. On it were still the patterns of the world tree. Although somewhat dim, it had the yet-to-bloom brilliance preparing to unfold. And most importantly, contained a few words. Su Buxian Councilman Appointment. Let's go, stop dawdling. Su Qi wore a white round hat with black and white stripes, gently placing it on his head. Assume the post at Demon City. Demon City, known as Evil City. Even though he's asking us to head to the top, has that guy considered the difficulties? Nancy widened her eyes. He doesn't understand. There are only 2 routes to the top. Either take the loop line or the mountain climbing line. Taking the loop line is the easiest, costing the least points, one loop after another, but the required time would increase accordingly. And the straight line is essentially climbing the mountain, heading from the bottom to the top of a palace's jurisdiction, and can only go through a controlled jurisdiction. But doing so requires paying a hefty passage fee, practically consuming 4/5 of their current points. Nancy touched her wrist Starfire chip, gritting her teeth. Yet he asks us to hurry. This garbage really is for free. The information and guidance left by Su Qi was to reach the palace quickly, so taking the loop line was definitely out of the question, as at this pace and restriction, it could take 2 or 3 days or even longer with the loop line. Hence, everyone now has to pay a high amount of points, climbing layer by layer, on the way to the palace. His heart was bleeding. After all, each point was earned from collecting one piece of garbage at a time, laboring desperately for it, all for elevating identity and reaching a higher point. He felt heartache, not to mention everyone else. Nancy couldn't help but glance at everyone, now queuing to pay the quick mountain climbing passage fee. I earned 1,000 delivering food. This is what I earned mixing cement. I handed out flyers. I worked as a gigolo. ? Frost walked next to Nancy. I've calculated, reaching the palace will cost at least 8,000 points. which is already the point number for advancing to B-level identity, practically all our savings. And Nancy, is all this just to quickly reach the palace? Worth it? How would I know? All orders from Su Buxian. Nancy smiled. Trust me. Trust the sect hierarch. The rewards from our current expenditure will definitely be worth it. Even learn to lie now. Who made him a high official in the everyday commerce of the hustlers sect. This cleanup job must be done personally. And everyone was getting closer to the top, encountering more and more powerful people, and individuals from the Abyss and God's Palace began appearing more frequently. The route they were taking now wasn't the cheapest, but was said to be the safest, controlled by a Heavenly Destiny person from God's Palace. Of course, that Heavenly Destiny person's identity isn't simple. Somehow in ancient times, he obtained the World Tree Leaf, becoming a Heavenly Destiny person, and could be found in legends documented in ancient books, also a person of the past with a complicated background, and likewise a God's son. After all, the palace not only requires sufficient points but also the ability to assume the palace controller role, possessing the qualification to gain palace recognition. And this part stumped countless people, becoming the biggest obstacle. Only then people discovered, the stronger the divinity, the higher the chance of recognition, forming gatherings of powerful forces centered around God's sons. At this moment, as they were climbing the mountain, a palace burst out with intense light, blooming like fireworks. What is that? Bai Yilan looked towards the mountain's palace groups. A new council member has been born, and it signifies someone has successfully gained control over a palace. Nancy said softly. The next moment, the light blooming from the palace began to illuminate the previously dim area from the highest point downward, like flowing water. This is a jurisdiction unique to this palace. Is it the God's sons who came with us? Frost raised his head. Ever since witnessing the God's sons in action, they had already realized they were the true heaven's chosen son, the true protagonist. Nancy, however, shook her head. No one can become a councilman that quickly. To earn 1,000,000 points, even with every method used, it's simply impossible that fast. And, haven't you noticed? Nancy looked upwards. The phenomenon over there is no simple matter. It's not just the shining light. A dense darkness hides within, terrifying and ominous power flowing downward. A deep voice croaked, Abyss! It seems a venerable of the Abyss has successfully ascended and become the master of a palace. If that's the power from the Abyss side, I suppose there's nothing they can't accomplish. Nancy's voice carried some solemnity. It's precisely because of his other identity as a Heavenly Destiny person that he understands the various trends at the God's Palace and the large disparity with the Abyss. And they are also straining every nerve to become controllers of the palaces. The more palaces, the more people they can bring, stronger combat power, more qualifications to vie for the future. Everyone, be cautious. We must be even more careful and keep away from the Abyss presence, and be wary of other enemies. Previously, that God's Son breaking through to Sequence 6 already signifies that the restraint has weakened, and it might even exacerbate further. Yet, Nancy has seen many intense battles and fights along the way, ever more fierce, suggesting that the undercurrent is about to erupt. All forces have insiders and receive first-hand information through different channels. Just watch what those people do to know it. Also, be especially wary of the Venerables. They are terrifying, containing the power of the Abyss's smile. Nancy reminded once more. The Venerables are absolutely no simple matter. Each one is an absolute enemy of the Heavenly Destiny people. Frost nodded. We can somewhat see it, but rest assured, Lord Nancy, we will definitely stay away from the Abyss presence, not bringing trouble to the Hustlers sect and the sect hierarch. Nancy was somewhat touched. Such good kids. How did they end up joining the Hustlers sect so suddenly? And what's the use if you don't cause trouble? But alas, you've stumbled upon a sect hierarch who loves to make trouble. The Abyss. At least there are unlucky ones that have to be chosen, participating in the slots discussed by Su Buxian and the Bellringer. After all, they still don't know that the Venerable can inherit the power of Abyss's mighty beings, nor do they know that Heavenly Destiny people are the same. And Nancy knows even less. Everyone in the Hustler sect has the opportunity to participate. And just as everyone headed towards the mountaintop, Su Chi has already stepped onto the mountaintop with two others, reaching the edge of the palace cluster. The reason their speed was faster than others was because Su Chi's councilman appointment letter could directly teleport him in front of his palace. At this moment, the three of them were looking at the entire palace's exterior, bursting with white and black strange light phenomena. "Is this the palace's welcoming ceremony?" Su Chi murmured. "It's really a bit flashy. I initially wanted to be low-key. Yet this can be seen by everyone in the whole town, can't it? Hey, why haven't you been speaking along the way?" Su Chi curiously looked at the two. The two fell into silence, expressions gloomy. "No way. Bei Shenxing only wished to slap himself 2 hours ago for being so foolish. This guy is nothing but schemes. A pit filled with meticulous calculations." He was led step by step into Su Buxian's rhythm, passively accepting his suggestions. Then, there was nothing more to it. The victory was decided so quickly. Their defeat was like a mysterious explosion of the base right at the start of a game. Now, they mysteriously joined Su Buxian's Starfire plan, and as per the wager, Su Buxian is now their boss. This guy's calculations are terrifying. "Why is everyone looking so worried?" Su Chi murmured. "Taking the palace first is a good thing, isn't it? This way we have more time for our plan. Oh my, this guy's so shameless, even asking why they're worried." But they had to admit he was right. Having a palace was the most critical step for accomplishing many things. And Su Chi had miraculously advanced this boundary by half a month. He paused, softly sighed. This guy indeed seems to have an incredibly advanced plan. Wait a moment. At this time, Yang Jian suddenly lifted his head, gazing at the light illuminating the entire jurisdiction, like a river of brilliance. "Why, Brother Su, does your palace phenomenon turn out this way, compared to others? More chilling, dark." Su Chi raised his head, pointing. "Is it? Don't awkwardly darken it. Isn't there white? And there's a faint hint of yellow, gold, dark ancient color, blood red. Stop listing colors. Bei Shenxing. The palace changes its phenomena based on the controller, and the black within is unique to the abyss." Su Chi spread his hands. "So what? I remember the first time we met. Your identity was already a venerable." Bei Shenxing's face turned serious. "What exactly is your relationship with the abyss?" Even Yang Jian became solemn. Though he hadn't yet drawn his weapon, the atmosphere clearly changed. This must be clarified. After all, Bei Shenxing hadn't said much. Yang Jian brothers' heavenly court had long been targeted by the abyss, including himself. He recently found out his father's, Lord of Divine Countries Revival's issue, had traces of Abyss's involvement. "Don't worry, the Hustler sect has a relationship with the Abyss you just mentioned, but not a very good one." Su Chi smiled faintly. "I'm asking about you." "Me?" Su Chi gently extended his hand. The next moment, the black totem on his arm suddenly burst with terrifying dark power. The evil god's aura he suppressed within manifesting continuously. The two of them had their expressions change, and the divinity within them sounded loud alarms. "Such terrifying intensity. You really are." And immediately after, on Su Chi's other side, an explosion of holy aura burst forth. Old world tree seed driving an astonishing heavenly destiny aura. Bei Shenxing was truly stunned. "What's this? How does this guy have both the Venerable's totem and the heavenly destiny aura? What espionage is this? A double agent?" "All right," Su Chi demonstrated for a moment, then immediately pulled it back. "Just take a look. You know my Starfire plan? Eating the Abyss's flesh, drinking the Abyss's blood. Stop wildly speculating." He took steps towards the palace, the grand palace gleaming with radiant light, obviously a blank slate just moments ago, now developing various patterns, each one corresponding to Su Chi's sequence, like various identity cards produced by the sequences. There are still many things to do. Bei Xinqing and Yang Jian fell into silence. This guy is truly unreadable now, especially after witnessing the previous scene. They've seen not just a few venerables, each one exuding terrifying abyssal aura. They've also seen plenty of heavenly destiny people, the awe-inspiring white light on them representing their connection to more world tree energy. But none could compare to the totality of Su Qi's explosion of everything, the earlier terrifying aura just for a moment enough to see complete domination. And what they had no idea of was, the earlier explosion wasn't everything, just a sliver stored by Su Qi. After all, he possesses both the old world tree seed and the evil god's eyeball. He is now the source. Since you don't want to say, I won't ask further, right now I only want to know. Yang Jian's expression was incredibly serious, as if making a certain determination. What role does the Hustlers sect want to play in the future? The current me, as soon-to-be master of heaven, am inquiring. He didn't directly ask Su Buxian, but instead asked the Hustlers sect, because he had already seen through Bei Xinqing that scheming was one thing, planning was another. Su Buxian wanted to bring them into the fold. Good question. To prevent the world from being destroyed, to protect the world's peace, to convey evil with love and truth. Bei Xinqing widened his eyes. Stop reciting lines. I'm seriously asking. Su Qi paused. So am I. Our Hustlers are such a loving organization. Just with one small difference. There's a little fee to collect. Su Qi had already stepped into the palace. With each step forward he took inside, the various arrangements and decorations inside, including the outside of the palace, would undergo changes. Each palace, although just ordinary in appearance when unmastered, would change with the presence of a controller. Of course, it could even become more bizarre, but that would require paying points. Even the jurisdiction could be transformed into uniquely themed streets. Apart from the Abyss and God's Palace, many people would do this, although for normal people even a tiny bit of points wouldn't be wasted easily. But for those promoted to a councilman, owning a palace and jurisdiction, generating income in the jurisdiction is most important. After all, various points generated within one's jurisdiction allow a councilman to take a cut. In theory, no matter how many points taken are of no use, since the identity has already peaked as an S-class councilman, there's no room for advancement. But in fact, reality differs, because Su Qi discovered upon arriving here an immensely important rule. That is, the palace can upgrade its quality. It can go from low quality to ordinary to perfect to immortal to legend. This completely corresponds to the item's quality. In other words, this palace is considered an item. Moreover, the most important thing is, not only can it upgrade, but it can also be retained and permanently owned. As long as before leaving, the quality is changed from low quality to ordinary, it can become a portable little world, capable of hiding, accommodating, and sheltering a group of people. Just like the heavenly court on Yangjian, only its quality currently is far inferior. Definitely a good thing, and something I very much need. Su Qi's eyes brightened. He had always been pondering a question, given that the Hustlers sect wants to go public, grow, and start developing after erupting from the chaotic situation. Although there are various business plans and ideas and considerable preparations, the most crucial point has never been solved. That is the sanctuary. Even though he considers himself to have few enemies, there are always a few people who hate his benevolent nature. The Hustlers sect will inevitably be targeted. By then, no matter the action, any slight movement or sign could lead to the Hustlers sect facing relentless hunting, possibly not even having the chance to grow. Therefore, Su Qi has been searching for an opportunity to perfectly conceal the headquarters of the Hustlers sect and ensure numerous members can move freely and conveniently within it. Previously, he wanted to rely on the Holy Light Corridor, seeing if it could serve as a base, but in fact, the Holy Light Corridor has significant limitations. It seems more like a fixed space with many ideas unachievable upon it. But having this palace makes it different. Many of Su Qi's ideas can be implemented. Of course, the prerequisite is being able to upgrade to ordinary quality. Su Qi looked at the requirements needed for upgrading. To reach the ordinary level requires at least 100 million points. That's a bit absurd. Just the ordinary quality small world requires these kinds of points. It seems like upgrading it to higher qualities would be a long process, impossible to accomplish easily. And now, after being promoted to a councilman, there hasn't been much change in the title on the identity card. Still, S-Class Leisure Seeker. Though dazzling, it always feels lacking something, as if this isn't the end. Similarly, the abilities contained within it have changed. Currently, it's 100,000 points per hour, which looks like a lot but indeed is so. According to the information Su Chi got from the bell ringer. A palace's daily revenue ranges roughly from 500,000 to 1 million. Upgrading to ordinary quality would take at least 3 months, not to mention reaching legend above. At the current pace, even the abyss with the most palaces can't achieve it in a short time. So possibly on the final stage there will be variables. Everything awaits the opening of Killing Day. Bei Xinxing and Yang Jian also stepped inside at this moment, watching the changes within the entire palace. What kind of appearance do you want to create? Bei Xinxing looked up. After all, the palace is equivalent to a unique space. If it can reach a certain extent, it could evolve into a small world like the Heavenly Court and become infinitely useful. Mickey's Magic House? What do you guys think? Su Chi extended his hand, and a hologram appeared on it. I would just turn around and leave, Bei Xinxing yelled. I think the style is pretty good, Su Chi muttered. Yang Jian calmly said, when this palace evolves into a small world, it can be taken with you, and this small world, you will have seen it. It's like the Heavenly Court. As long as it keeps growing, it can become a true great world, able to become the real core headquarters of a power. Many divine races are like this. Many top forces want to acquire it, but can't obtain it at all. So, proceed cautiously. And if we're going to implement your Starfire plan, it will become the facade on stage. Also the future facade of the Hustlers sect. Su Chi paused. You two don't plan on building 2 more palaces. Since their status was already close to A-class, the position of councilman was just within reach. Bei Xinxing shook his head. From the very start, we only intended to control 1 palace. And now that you have it, naturally we'll start wholeheartedly helping this palace grow. After all, this is the most crucial part of our plan. We must take the palace away, and the prerequisite for taking it away is achieving ordinary quality. Since you have it now, you'll naturally lead, and will fully assist. Su Chi had to admit that he reached his conclusion a bit early. Don't these two have a plan? Moreover, their understanding and control of information here far exceeded that of him, the native sect hierarch of the Hustlers sect. Can you still contact those little fellows of your Hustlers sect? They should still be on the way up the mountain. It's estimated to cost a lot of points. Su Chi glanced at the Starfire chip and could know the current location of Bai Yilan and his companions. Yang Jian looked outside the palace. I brought you here in a hurry before, thinking it could end quickly. My apologies. It's a minor issue. They're not heading towards me anyway. Question mark. Bei Xinxing was taken aback. Then where are they going? It's perilous everywhere here. I've reminded you that if your members aren't careful, that group can easily be wiped out. He had led that group of adventurers on a journey, even during their escape. Bei Xinxing also left guidance for the adventurer groups he gathered, waiting for them to make contact. After all, it was part of what he had organized, a section of adventurers he acknowledged. They're headed to another palace. Question mark. Yang Jian was stunned. Another palace? Su Chi simply smiled. I've said the connections of the Hustlers sect are vast. Naturally, there are other partners. Bei Xinxing gritted his teeth. How many secrets are you hiding? Isn't it enough that we two are participating in the Starfire plan cooperation? Su Chi looked at the two of them, smiling harmlessly. Starfire is meant to burn away endless darkness. Yang Jian and Bei Xinxing exchanged no words, nearly redundant. The two instantly understood Su Chi's implication. Their hearts trembled. This guy's ambition seems even more frightening than they had imagined. Let's start operating next. Su Chi glanced at the palace. There are still many things to do. connect the jurisdiction areas, replan the buildings, profession from low to high, begin issuing various construction tasks. The construction tasks for jurisdiction areas, society, life, etc., need to be completed by everyone holding a profession. And these tasks come from the world tree. Upon completion, the palace and the person completing the professional tasks will share these points. The sharing ratio is naturally decided by the controller of the palace. The fast-paced construction on the Abysses side is due to their believers being purely cattle, maintaining only a tenth of task completion points for themselves, handing the rest over to the palace. And this is the restriction of the world tree rules. Without it, probably all points would be contributed. 100 million. Su Qi had already calculated. He now earns 10,000 points per hour, needing approximately a month. Relying on himself alone is a bit difficult, but combined with the entire jurisdiction area's operation, the time can be shortened, possibly completing it before the town slaughter day. However, Su Qi wasn't in a hurry. This palace was very important because it could evolve into a small world, laying the foundation for the Hustlers sect's future headquarters. But the most important aspect is the layout to seize advantages. Additionally, there's the weekly council meeting. This is also crucial. Many things are imperative, as the Hustlers sect must begin stabilizing its footing, running everything, arranging all aspects. But simultaneously, this is also the first step towards the entire present world, as this time the Hustlers sect is completely exposed, bringing tremendous danger and vast opportunities together. And his current sequence also needs further advancement, though he could stand a fight against Bei Shenxing now. At that moment he had the upper hand. After all, Bei Shenxing had just broken through to sequence 6, and his grasp over strength was insufficient. Of course, in a real life or death battle, the defeated would still be Bei Shenxing, since Su Qi had too many hidden cards, neither legend nor divine artifacts. Moreover, he's short one immortal way sequence. While the current progress is already in fusion, somehow, Su Qi couldn't trigger it. Its strength seems dormant, awaiting an opportunity. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Old Huang, leading the first core members of the Hustlers sect, was grumbling while crossing various jurisdiction zones. What the hell does that bastard want? Why insist we climb the mountain? Go to the palace cluster. An adjacent figure, dressed in black assassination attire, eyes exuding a calm and profound glow. Show respect to the sect hierarch. Oh! Old Huang grumbled even more. How long have you known this guy? And already that loyal? And beside this perfect physique, every muscle seemed to contain infinite strength. It was T0. Slowly, it spoke. It was the sect hierarch who rescued me from that chaos, despairing place, granting me a second life. T0's language had already become indistinguishable from normal people. Its learning and growth speed was terrifying, and surprisingly, loyal. This caused some astonishment among the members of Gan Wensui's trio coaching it. But only T0 knew, within his body lay terrifying strength. Concurrently extremely dangerous, that was the aura of the blood demon. Seemingly, it could devour him at any moment. Even removed from that world, death still cast shadows upon him. However, the holy light mark upon his body appeared able to suppress the eruption of that deadly seed. The consciousness of T0 born was like a blank slate with high intelligence, without distinguishing right and wrong. Back then, even amidst others' presence, it didn't commit random killings. Just bewilderment and panic. Old Huang rolled his eyes. He was as shrewd as ever. While T0 initially shocked him, he quickly found out. T0 was quite simple, easily extracting a lot of information, understanding the whole situation. Su Buxian lucked out picking up an existence potentially as a demigod in the future. That was Old Huang's assessment of T0. Still, I can't comprehend his current intentions. Remote commanding them and especially focusing on the place he least wanted to approach. The palace cluster. Where were those people? The god's palace. The Abyss's upper ranks. Damn it! All of them were against him, bearing grudges and enmity. T0 paused suddenly, holy light flickering on his body. Lord of Yellow Robe. His manner of speech was surprisingly polite now. The sect hierarch wishes to speak with you. Old Huang gritted his teeth fiercely. All right, I was just thinking of cursing that bastard. Holy Light's temporary mark appeared in Old Huang's palm. The next instant, Old Huang burst into curses. You bastard! Are you insane? What exactly do you want? I'm dragging a group of the Hustlers sect's future hopes, accompanying you on this wild ride. You! All right, Brother Huang. Calm down. Su Qi replied indifferently. This time, it really is a big deal. Old Huang, you better make sure it truly is a big deal. I've already reached an agreement with someone. The other members of the Hustler sect are gradually heading towards him, and Huang, you need to lead as a priest of the Hustler sect to consult on the next action with this collaborator. More action? Collaborator still. Old Huang grumbled. I've been clear, the various affairs here aren't something our small group of the Hustlers sect can engage with. The gigantic entities of the Abyss and God's Palace, to name a few. Those top factions, Divine Race's Sun, Divine Sun, they're everywhere here. Who are you working with? No, I should ask. Who would be so insane to choose collaborating with such a small sect? Old Huang isn't a fool. On the contrary, he can mix in and out of the priest positions under various divines, all thanks to his precise judgment and grasp of the situation. He naturally has long known what will happen here, and without the need for those major forces channels to obtain information, he has his own ways of understanding many unknown pieces of information. Various heavenly destiny people, the opposition of the venerable sword. He's also caught wind of what might occur. That's why he believes this matter is simply untouchable. Those God's sons, divine sons, the top-tier forces are the ones who can stand at the top, and becoming their vassals or tools, a qualification gained, is merely cannon fodder. That guy should be able to see this point. After all, he used to at least firmly grasp him. But now, he insists on having him lead everyone to meet the collaborators. Don't worry. There are plenty of people who want to cooperate with the Hustlers sect. Su Qi's calm voice came from over there. As a priest, you are the diplomat of the Hustlers sect, so don't embarrass me, like getting weak-kneed at the sight of collaborators. Old Huang, stop using reverse psychology. Childish, really childish. So what exactly do you want to do? Su Qi over there gave a mysterious smile. You'll know when you meet the collaborators. Trust me. This is your chance with the Hustlers sect to stand up. Heh, you're just painting a pie. Old Huang pulled at his lips, knowing Su Buxian too well. This guy is 100 times more nasty than himself. Go. Another team of the Hustlers sect members are probably arriving soon. Su Qi said lightly. Haven't you always wanted to see how I've developed? There's no better time than now. Rest assured, after completing this collaboration, it should be about time to leave here. Old Huang paused, looking hesitant. When Su Buxian jokes with him, he can counter with a couple of sentences. But when this guy reassures him, he truly can't be at ease. Oh well. Old Huang sighed in the end. I'll just go and look. Tell me the specific information first. Once you meet the collaborator, he will explain. Speaking now, afraid you'll really run. After all, that bellringer was the one who hunted Old Huang back in the day. Besides, show some of the Hustlers sect priests bearing. When discussing matters or taking action, don't let the other side take control. Old Huang snorted. Nonsense? Who do you think I am? I, Old Huang, never feared anyone. Su Qi gave a thumbs up. Old but still strong. Disrespecting his elders. You damn. Is that a compliment? Old Huang cursed angrily. And where do you see I am old? There are plenty who have lived long. All right, then the old steed in the stable, aspiring over 1,000 miles. Old Huang. He's exhausted. Speaking with Su Buxian is far more tiring than dealing with those dangerous divines. Hanging up. I have important matters during this period. Don't miss me too much, and don't call me for no reason. Old Huang. You bastard. Not even waiting for his response. At this moment, Su Qi has already ended the call. If there were mystic iron in Old Huang's clenched hand, it would surely have been crushed. The people nearby, "Priest, where do we go now?" Old Huang cursed inwardly, full of resentment, yet outwardly showed no ripples. He waved his big hand. "The great sect hierarch has sent orders. He has already arranged our next moves. To cooperate with the top-tier forces, this is a small step for us, but a giant leap for the Hustlers sect. So get energized." Old Huang spread both hands again. "From now on, every step we take will influence the direction of the present world." Although Old Huang harbors deep resentment towards Su Buxian, he never shows it in front of others, especially to the members of the Hustlers sect. He always fulfills his priestly duties seriously, and constantly upholds the prestige of the Hustlers sect's sect hierarch. Of course, he talks without scruples, boasting effortlessly. Isn't that what a priest does? To increase faith. Indeed. And since it's Su Buxian's pie, he should be the one to bake it. "Let's go." Old Huang no longer delayed. Since Su Buxian had a plan and couldn't be persuaded otherwise, he hurried to completion. He wanted to see which poor soul was dragged down by Su Buxian again. However, since there's cooperation, he was curious about its contents because in a place full of divine sons, small organizations like the Hustlers sect can't create any waves. Just looking to see if there's a chance to sip some soup. As long as it's beneficial. Then, as priest, he naturally must treat it seriously. And besides, who is he? Traversing countless worlds, dealing with various entities, whether in the underworld or otherworld, abnormality or eerie dealings. Can he not handle a collaborator? At this moment, they were still some distance from the palace complexes. As before receiving Su Qi's call, they were on the other side. It had already taken half a day to reach this place. This huge town, with only the direct route being the fastest to the summit, but it also requires spending a lot of points. It's like going broke. Old Huang cursed, if this action doesn't yield higher returns. He planned to give Su Buxian a thrashing. Now knowing his strength has recovered to sequence 6, not only recovered, he's just a step away from being extraordinary. This too is a huge threshold, an insurmountable gap. And at this moment, on the contrary, Bai Yilan and they arrived first. "Mr. Nancy, are you sure it was Brother Su who sent us here?" Bai Yilan's gaze slightly trembled as he looked around. This place is already the entrance to the palace complex, and the surroundings are filled with boundless auras soaring to the sky, with numerous terrifying anomalies growing among the various palaces. The people around include a large number of Abyss Venerables, Heavenly Destiny people from the God's Palace, and many priests and Taoist guardians behind the Divine Race's sons, top forces, and so on. All top-tier big shots. Someone's eyelids twitched violently. There isn't a single simple existence. They stood here, looking at the bustling, indifferent existences, just like wild people from remote areas entering a city, entirely out of place. Nancy also took a deep breath. After all, he also saw many familiar top-tier forces. It's worth noting, when he hosted events before, the company he signed contracts with was constant star level. They could transport various players from numerous worlds, even inviting various high-sequence observers. Their methods were naturally extraordinary. However, such a force is nothing more than a speck here. Their company, even spending a fortune, cautiously invited those high-sequencers. Among these forces before their eyes, they're merely peripheral gatekeepers. Though Nancy felt the fearsome powers and dangerous totems, he survived the baptism of Heavenly Destiny people. He took a deep breath. "Let's go, we need to enter here." Nancy knows what Su Qi wants to do, but before doing that, they have to reach a place to await another group of the Hustlers sect members to arrive. Besides, Ah Cheng is not here. He's back carrying the Starfire chips Su Qi gave him, eagerly reporting to his family's Lord of 3-star gods. Su Qi has his own arrangements over there. They proceeded inside as a group. This palace complex, each one has vast rituals guarding it, with the apparent close proximity from afar. However, upon entering the street, it becomes evident each palace seems like a twisted illusion, as if they're not in the same space. One can feel the dangerous aura and the eternally unreachable distortion. This is normal. After all, The palaces belong to different faction forces. Only the God's Palace and Abyss form a distinct area. And this is also the most powerful place of World Tree's strength. While the rules might be weakened in the jurisdiction below, no such tendency is seen here. Many people are still doing various professional tasks here to earn numerous points. And this doesn't belong to the jurisdiction of any palace. All task points are split equally, while the other half emerges from the underground withered root of World Tree, sprouting the root of New World Tree. In other words, the more people here, the more tasks they complete. The closer the moment of the root of New World Tree blooming again approaches. Mr. Nancy, something has happened. Bai Yilan suddenly whispered. Nancy slightly raised his head, brows slightly furrowed. What's the matter? I, Brother Su, and Jiang Ji once stayed in a world together and established a friendship with a divine son. Bai Yilan put on a hat. However, we also attracted a terrifying enemy who coveted that world at that time. And now, both of them are there. Nancy looked over. There was a black and dark red apartment. Indeed, it was an apartment. Since it's supported by the root of 10,000 Realms World Tree, various strange buildings appearing is quite normal. Outside the palace are also extensive areas with various structures. At this moment, outside the apartment, a group of people in black robes was dragging a blood-covered, disheveled figure, walking step by step upwards. The leader, in a white outfit, exuded no aura. Yet the group below all had their heads lowered, seemingly terrified of him. That group! Nancy merely glanced. His eyes suddenly contracted. All are venerables of the Abyss, and their dragged, injured, disheveled person was biting down hard, yet couldn't make a sound, struggling desperately but to no avail. Venerables! Bai Yilan trembled all over. That one in white! Nancy's expression was grave. That one in white is more than just an ordinary venerable, just like the Divine Sons gathering Divine Sons. The heavenly destiny people among Divine Sons receives even more significant powers. Among venerables there's a strict hierarchy, clearly differentiated by strength. That person, being able to make so many venerables submit, is a terrifying existence. Nancy's eyes revealed strong apprehension. Understand that venerables are a group of extremely ruthless individuals, each formidable in their domain. Yet submitting to such an existence is certainly not simple. Bai Yilan fell silent. He never expected the existence they once provoked to be so terrifying, not only connected to the Abyss, but also a legendary venerable. And with absolute power among venerables. That little fellow they are carrying seems to be the one you just mentioned. Bai Yilan clenched his fist. His name is Du En. We previously acted together, were good companions. Later parted ways, not knowing what happened, but didn't expect to see him here. Frost solemnly asked, "Shall we save him?" You also stepped forward. "It's just a word. Nancy." He found. Even though this group of people wasn't that insightful, each possessed an unwavering heart, moving forward and charging ahead without hesitation. Su Buxian picked up a treasure with them. However, you can't save a thing. Nancy cursed and swept them with his gaze. Stay put. Each venerable possesses at least Divine Son strength, but that venerable. His actual strength is sequence 6. Even though equally restricted like me, he's definitely not someone you can defeat by rushing in. What kind of things are these? Su Buxian started provoking the Abyss power this soon? Then, Bai Yilan said heavily, I will contact Brother Su. Brother Su must have a way. He spoke about tricking them into the Hustlers sect. Nancy, Frost, you, and others. Hey, no one's backing down? Yet the Starfire chip had no response, seemed unable to connect. That guy was taken by 2 more powerful sons of divine race. Nancy shook his head. He can't protect himself. Hold on. Here no killing is permitted. This apartment is also a place for recovery of spiritual energy and injuries. Before the opponent exits the apartment, let's wait. Also, other members of the Hustlers sect are hurrying here. Nancy didn't know who was coming or how many, but he couldn't watch this little fellow charge ahead recklessly. In this aspect, Su Buxian was better, all calculations, no loyalty, even rescuing requires a sufficient price afterwards. I understand. Bai Yilan wanted to save people but remained rational and calm. Remembering that world, they had become companions with Duan's group, receiving much help from them. But now they seemed powerless. Suddenly pausing, he heard a weak voice reach his ear. "Brother Bai." Bai Yilan turned around. His eyes shifted. In a corner, there adhered a wall pencil drawing. Within the drawing hid a human face. That familiar face. It was indeed Duan's Taoist guardian, the bearded man from that superpower world. The bearded man's face was very disheveled and weak, cautiously glanced at them and withdrew. "Brother Bai, walk from the corner nearby. We will open a teleportation gate." Nancy looked over, his eyes questioning. "It's Duan's companion." Bai Yilan's gaze shifted. "I'll go with you." Nancy nodded. Looking at Frost and the others, "Find a place to stay nearby. Recover spiritual energy and physical strength. We'll come soon." Spending points allows acquiring a temporarily safe spot within a building. Frost and you nodded without objection. Bai Yilan and Nancy walked across the street, and sure enough, there was a teleportation gate in the corner. Nancy's eyes suddenly filled with Lin. In fact, when he first saw the face appear on the mural, he felt like speaking up. Such a peculiar ability. He considers himself well-traveled. After all, he was once the host of a unique program gathering countless worlds. However, this kind of superpower he has never seen. The fluctuations are very odd. Unlike the abilities usable in the present world. They were teleported there. The bearded man and over 40 others were in a fallen house. Everyone extremely bedraggled, each wounded. They could only seek sanctuary here to recover their spiritual energy and injuries. "Seems we've been docked points." Bai Yilan froze for a moment. The bearded man awkwardly scratched his head. "Sorry, we've spent all our points. Now we have nothing left." "This is a minor issue. Could you explain what's going on?" Bai Yilan spoke softly. Everyone present was elite in the superpower world, each possessing unique superpowers, and were also the first to take the Starfire potion. Back then, Bai Yilan heard Brother Su say, "Their strength is not simple." And when Duan led everyone, burdened with some mission, to search for something, they did not stop him. The bearded man spoke hoarsely. "Sorry, we have hidden many things before. In fact, we have always been seeking a coordinate, and that coordinate is in this extremely evil world. This matter was known to Su Buxian, but not to Bai Yilan. We found it, but there are abyssal entities searching for it," the bearded man rasped. "And as expected, it was the enemy controlling everything in our world before. To prevent the coordinate from being discovered, Lord Duan sacrificed himself as bait and was captured. And as a result, we are in this situation now." Bai Yilan nods gravely. "I understand." But Nancy suddenly grabbed his shoulder, interrupting him, motioning Bai Yilan to not rush. He looked at the bearded man and company, speaking softly. "You seem to have known earlier that the enemy came from the abyss?" Bai Yilan paused, seemingly realizing this point too. From the start of that world, everyone seemed entirely unaware of the external world. A completely closed-off world, but in fact, aside from unfamiliarity with the current external situation, much was hidden. The bearded man chuckled helplessly. "The priest knew. Naturally, we found out afterward." Several familiar faces who had fought alongside Bai Yilan before, their voices heavy. "We know we've hidden much. But, please Brother Bai, I wish to seek help from Brother Su Buxian." Bai Yilan furrowed his brow slightly, growing solemn. "Firstly, Brother Su is not here. Secondly, I regard you all as comrades. But you've hidden too many things unknown to us. Also, why insist on seeking Brother Su's help?" He looked at them. "Let me speak. There's no need to hide." The bearded man clenched his fists, sighing lightly. "Actually, we're not from the present world. We come from the superpower dimension, seeking the coordinate not for the divine's coordinate we believe in, but for the entire superpower dimension." Bai Yilan hasn't shown any expression yet. Nancy beside him inhaled deeply. Isn't the superpower dimension already destroyed? Completely annihilated. Bai Yilin widened his eyes. Mr. Nancy, you know? When war between the abyss and reality broke out, the superpower dimension was obliterated by mysterious forces. Reportedly, with just a snap, the entire superpower world crumbled. Nancy looked at the bearded man. Though there are survivors from the superpower dimension, the dimension should have vanished long ago. In his program, he also encountered superpower survivors. This existence is similar to current sequence ability but different. The ability is extraordinarily strong and absurd, far surpassing sequence level. Just like how they just opened the teleportation gate using paintings to probe without a single spiritual energy fluctuation. But similarly, the bodies of superpower users are also very fragile. Before becoming divine, this is almost impossible to change. Thus, despite having various fatal superpowers, their existence is inherently in mortal peril. Bai Yilin's gaze shifts, recalling memories from staying in that world. It indeed seems so. This is why they were researching body evolution-enhancing drugs. Ultimately, Brother Su solved this issue. But why do you need Brother Su's help? Bai Yilin asked. This is the most puzzling point. Although Brother Su may have saved that world, encountering such vast dimensional beings, he could do nothing. The bearded man shook his head. I don't know either. Nancy frowned. You don't know. He had no camaraderie with this group. He was viewing things entirely from the perspective of the Hustlers sect. There's no need, he didn't want to provoke dangerous beings. Because the priest said that if things go wrong, seek Su Buxian's help first. But the reason was not given. Additionally, one more point. The bearded man lowered his head. The Abyss Venerable who took Lord Duan, named Brother Su Buxian specifically, also gave us a countdown. If at that time Brother Su Buxian does not appear, our divine son. Nancy sneered coldly. Quite a concealment. Quite a priest's council. Perhaps wanting to endanger Brother Su Buxian to exchange for your divine son? I even suspect that the previous part was all made up by you guys. The bearded man didn't argue with reason but sighed heavily, then reached out and took out a piece of equipment. This is. Bai Yilin thought it looked familiar. It's the Starfire communicator that Lord Su Buxian left us. The bearded man said softly. He said to press the button on it, once we encounter unavoidable danger. Bai Yilin's eyes shifted. This made him recall the predecessor of the Starfire chip, the previous product he saw when Brother Su was developing it. But its function was very single. It could only transmit information and position to the vast universe and couldn't do anything else, completely incomparable to the Starfire chip. But from the moment we arrived here, even when the opponent threatened the Divine Sun and killed many of us, when the Divine Sun was taken away, he never had the intention to hand it over. The Divine Sun didn't want us to use it, and we only thought to personally seek your help after seeing you, Brother Bai. The bearded man sighed. Hoping Lord Su Buxian might have a solution, Nancy said nothing. He was a cautious person and had seen many whose actions didn't match their words. But the other party indeed showed no sign of lying. But all of this still needs Su Buxian to decide. He was transmitting the situation here to Su Buxian through the Starfire chip. The Starfire chip can now carry out long-distance delayed transmission, perhaps because the local restrictions had weakened, or maybe the Starfire chip evolves and grows every second. At least communication can be established. However, the signal on Su Buxian's side wasn't great either, but being able to communicate across vast distances here was already a remarkable capability. Nevertheless, a few intermittent lines soon came through. Help, but don't rush. Wait for old Huang. Finally, some movement on the long-term plan. Remember, this is the Hustlers sect business operation, not free. Bai Yilin's side also showed some activity, as both were pulled into a channel, receiving Su Buxian's messages simultaneously. Bai Yilin. Bai Yilin quietly watched the communication device on the bearded man. Help? Locate? He felt. Brother Su might have prepared in advance. Nancy was worried. The enemies increased again, not only those from Abyss, but also a very core and powerful Venerable. On the other side, the holographic panel in front of Su Buxian slowly appeared, revealing all sorts of densely packed information from the bearded man and others. Xiao Meng. Receiving data, please wait. The analysis time is about 2 hours, as it involves much old data. Okay. Su Qi replied calmly, showing a smile. I knew it wouldn't be simple. From the moment he met the pigeon god, he noticed the traces of other dimensions above the other's head, and the pigeon god had hidden much from him. What they were looking for wasn't so much the coordinates of pigeon god, but actually the location of the superpower dimension. The pigeon god didn't lie. It did escape from the angel divine race but concealed the part where it settled in the superpower dimension. The mark it left on my world tree leaf likely contained coordinate information. And Duan's world was directly heading towards the extremely evil world. According to the original plan, upon arrival the world tree leaf would react. But unfortunately, Su Qi himself wasn't the type to sit still. Not only did he wander around, but he also ventured into the old days, directly destroying that world tree leaf. Fortunately, Su Qi realized this at the time and left a contingency plan. The plunder starship remained in his world, and the Starfire connector was not just for location and communication. Positioning allowed them to detect their location when they entered the range of the Starfire station. Additionally, on top of that was the offline collector, a technology left by Xiao Meng, which could transform everything they experienced into data and record it therein. Once they pushed the button or entered the chip range of the Starfire station, the data could be directly transmitted over. Like now, the recorded data inside was being transmitted. Xiao Meng was also deciphering. The other side ventured into the old days, seeking the coordinates of the superpower dimension, and this was one part of it. What's important is, Abyss was also searching concurrently, making this notably intriguing. What's going on? At this moment, the two godsons, Yang Jian and Bei Shenxing, were hunched over various palace jurisdiction manuals and documents, which all required verification and stamping before the jurisdiction could officially open. These tedious tasks somehow ended up being carried out by the two of them. Nothing much, just a few more familiar faces and a few more enemies. Su Qi said lightly, but no big deal, let's continue. They nodded without further questions, as what they were doing now was of utmost importance. A palace's greatest requirement wasn't strict rules and high-rate taxation but a constant flow of people. As it stands now, Su Qi neither has the vast heavenly destiny group of the God's Palace nor the extensive followers of the Abyss. The few hundred from the Hustlers sect couldn't make waves in it. The town was home to tens of millions, with various major forces and a vast number of adventurers coming through the ancient gate at the rear to this place. To snatch and create revenue from other jurisdictions wasn't that simple. Only another way would work. Originally, the plan of Bei Shenxing and Yang Jian was to rely on their prestige and status to attract other forces to join and start their subsequent plans after taking over the palace. But Su Qi directly vetoed their plan. Now everything is arranged entirely by Su Qi. Why set up so many shops? There's also such a troublesome logistic and consumption regulations. A 7-day refund. Bei Shenxing felt a bit overwhelmed. The terms make my head spin. Others establish rules in just a few words, not allowing this or that. How comes you wrote up terms, privacy agreements, and so on? After all, it's the rules. Su Qi smiled slightly. This is the future headquarters of the Hustlers sect, so of course it needs to be more complete. The rules set for this palace and everything here once established would last. Moreover, I have old world tree seeds in my hands. Even if departing here means losing the power of the withered world tree roots below, it can still impose strong rule restrictions on anyone entering the Hustlers sect territory. By the way, Brother Su, what is this Pinduoduo bargain rule? Yang Jian puzzled over the new document. Why do we even have to pay others in points? 100,000 points each is too insane. This can quickly increase the traffic in our jurisdiction. Also note, everyone has a chance to get 100,000 points. Su Qi emphasized the chance. Each person needs to reach 100,000 points to withdraw, and when they see they are only 1 or 2 points away from withdrawal, they can initiate the bargain rule, inviting newcomers into the jurisdiction to bargain, complete tasks for a bargain, buy shop products for a bargain. Every bargain brings them closer to 100,000 points. It sounds too easy, doesn't it? Bei Xinxing frowned. Bargain down to only 0.01 left, then they'd need spirit coin to draw fragments, and once they get the last piece it splits again, and when they are another 0.01 fragment short, exit with the withdrawal card fragment. Su Qi's words made Yang Jian frown, seemingly digesting. Don't worry, you don't have to deal with this. Let Xiao Meng handle it all. Su Qi said lightly. The rise of the Hustlers sect begins now. The best business the Hustlers can currently do is the Chamber of Commerce. As for the Starfire plan, one of its cores is the Micro Starfire base station. Relying on Su Qi alone to establish the Starfire base station and relying on people from the Hustlers sect to spread the Starfire base station is too inefficient and troublesome. The best way is to embed it into every Starfire product that comes from the Hustlers sect. With Heart of Divine Weapon, Xiao Meng has already established 3 omnipotent assembly lines. Though not much, they can be mass-produced. In addition, Su Qi also sells knowledge here about rules in other places, provides a platform for cracking strategies, etc. Of course, in the early stage, all of this knowledge will be intelligently analyzed by Xiao Meng, recorded on-site, analyzed, and cracked. In the middle and late stages, it will become the place of communication for those using the Starfire platform. Beyond this, there is another important point, that is to establish Starfire communication that spans jurisdictions. This step is based on previous foundations, the widespread distribution of Starfire base stations for establishment. This is very important because all communications in this area will fail. Even voice transmission won't work, as there are rule restrictions, and spiritual energy fluctuations have a huge impact. Unless one possesses high-quality communication treasures, but such items are only owned by a few people. What Su Qi wants to do is the subordinate market, targeting the adventurers who make up the vast majority. However, there is no rush now. Before everything starts, the most important thing is to establish rules. Chaos is always dangerous. Strong and effective rules are necessary to ensure stability, to create a cyclic and repetitive trading system. Of course, the terms are also quickly generated by Xiao Meng according to her own ideas. Each clause contains over 100,000 words, excluding a large amount of text. The rest are, the Hustlers sect is not responsible. At this moment, Xiao also curiously glanced at some documents, not needing to read them carefully, but quickly reviewing them using the power of imagination, feeling a bit puzzled afterward. Wow, heartless capitalist. ? Su Qi righteously corrected it, saying, it's the Hustler's entrepreneur. Xiao showed disdain. However, after looking at a few more files, its expression changed slightly. It seems, towards ordinary adventurers or the oppressed underlings, it is quite considerate. This guy. By the way, do you know about the superpower dimension? At this moment, while claiming to be busy, Su Qi was actually fishing around with Xiao Meng, suddenly opening his mouth. All 4 were slightly stunned. Luo Xinfu and Xiao are on one channel. Bei Xinxing and Yang Jian are on another channel. The former one's slightly heavy-hearted. They are like us. They are targeted, fragmented dimensions, but they have already been destroyed. We don't know much because they were destroyed too quickly, and we were unable to protect ourselves at the time, rarely having the energy to obtain other news. Yang Jian and Bei Xinxing also paused slightly and nodded lightly. Naturally heard of it. Moreover, the superpower dimension seems to be recorded in the ancient texts of the divine country. Bei Xinxing nodded slightly and said, their dimension is centered around 5 gemstones: time, space, strength, reality, and soul. There's not much recorded in the ancient texts, only a note about the destruction. It seems a being known as Terminator gathered these gemstones, snapped its fingers, and the entire superpower dimension was shattered and vanished. Su Qi touched his chin. This has a strong sense of déjà vu. Besides, how do you know so much? Bei Xinxing. Why do I feel underestimated? He coughed. Mainly because the divine country gathers a large number of outer gods, people of unknown origins, so traces of various extinct races, jumbled information can be found within. Su Qi no longer pursued questioning. Instead, he slowly pondered. Terminator. When Bei Xinxing mentioned this word, he clearly stumbled slightly, indicating incomplete information, though needless to say Su Qi can roughly confirm. It is the Terminator who destroyed the Immortal Path dimension. Still, he did not jump to conclusions, waiting for actions to begin on Nancy's side. After tying Du-En and others to the battlefield, everything would be revealed. Presently, there's a two-pronged approach. Nancy and the old Huang crowd are gathering, preparing to meet the bellringer and cooperate in follow-up actions. Ah Chang seems to have brought his Starfire chip. Those three fellows seem to have formed a substantial force, with other arrangements. Additionally, there is also Shandian being a member of the Divine Machinery Kingdom. It's also been assigned tasks by Su Qi, now arranging everything, leaving coordinates for by Qixing them. Everything seems to be well arranged. The 99 encountered in Singularity Space, although yet to appear, Su Qi also prepared a set of contingency plans. After all, each of them owes him something, but for some reason, they haven't entered this town. But Su Qi knows they will inevitably reach this place. It's just a matter of time. However, with too much uncertainty, Su Qi only made a contingency plan. Moreover, there's also other important connections and important cards, such as the Black Cat Ball still bouncing around in space, and a large number of character cards drawn by exploiting the bug, etc. Time is running out, but there's much to do. Su Qi watched his hourly point reminder jumping to 100,000 points, slowly standing in front of the palace, looking towards the entire mountain. Let's get started. Old Huang wore a robe, using a hat to cover his face, and cautiously glanced around. Priest, how come you? Don't ask. Old Huang. The name of the Hustlers sect is too loud, so we need to keep low profile. In reality, it's like this. They had already reached the mountain top, right at the palace complex. The streets extending through the large areas were filled with all sorts of people and horses, top forces, divine sons, and so on. Too many familiar totems, important God's palace, and abyss. Old Huang looked at the distance where black and white lights clashed, making his teeth ache. This deadly place. Hope not to run into any acquaintances. He didn't have any, all were enemies, being wanted by priests and bishops of the various gods due to his defection. His hidden identity was meant to avoid all kinds of hunts. Walking here felt like walking on thin ice. However, Old Huang covered his face, but his aura slightly unfolded. Though this is the case, this feeling is also quite familiar and nostalgic. He was never a coward. Otherwise, he wouldn't be with Su Buxian. Both of them were the kind of people who sought fortune from danger. After all, it was not easy to switch between various gods. Only, Old Huang watched his steps more carefully, having already been wiped out once. If not for a divine artifact saving his life, he might have long disappeared without a trace. As for who wiped him out, Old Huang never mentioned. Even when Su Buxian asked him before, Old Huang didn't reveal a word. It was a definite taboo. He didn't want this taboo to spread to the Hustlers sect, for it was an unimaginable existence. Even though that Su Buxian lad spoke excitedly, he had never really seen the vastness of the world. He's still better off leading his Hustlers sect. Once he finished repaying this favor, he would likely face those dangerous and terrifying troubles, so it's best not to bring that dangerous taboo to him. After all, it involved the frightening old days and the ominous that terrified countless people. Let's go. Follow me first, and let's meet up with the other Hustlers sect members. Old Huang, at this moment, put aside his thoughts. He was really curious about how the other Hustlers sect members were and what Su Buxian was up to now. But it didn't matter. Coming here was like returning to his comfort zone. The feeling of the old days returned. The king returns. See how he navigates skillfully to let the Hustlers sect drink some soup in this terrifying giant of myriad races. Old Huang led everyone forward. Though they were over 100 people, they actually weren't conspicuous because there were many people in this place, and it's the solitary ones who were few. All major forces walked among them, showcasing their own totems. Priest, should we reveal our hustler's sect's totem? A member of the hustler's sect beside him, Iju, said excitedly. Another member clenched his fist and said excitedly, "This is a good opportunity to make a name for ourselves. Don't embarrass us." Old Huang really wanted to say this, but he held back. Hang it. The hustler's sex totem was casually designed by that Su Buxian guy, a very simple version that probably no one recognizes. When it comes time to meet other members of the hustler's sect, it'll be easier to distinguish. Soon, totems appeared on everyone, but they were simple sketches that didn't boost their presence but rather weakened it a bit. All right, we have already reached this coordinate. Old Huang looked around. In the vast location, streets that sprawled for tens of thousands of meters crisscrossed, bustling with major forces, adventurers. He really couldn't tell where the other hustler's sect members were. But there was no rush. T0, Old Huang softly said. T0 gently nodded, beginning to communicate through the holy light mark. At the next moment, a voice from Su Buxian's side came. Old Huang, looks like you've arrived. Where are the other members of the hustler's sect? Old Huang paused. Is this the right coordinate? Definitely, but there's a small problem. Su Qi softly said. Next, let's start the task directly. Question mark. Old Huang, what are you up to? Here's the thing, we have made a deal with a very important client. As long as we can rescue their kidnapped young master, we will receive a high reward. Old Huang. He was rendered speechless by Su Qi's sudden change of topic. Up till now, he hadn't even figured out what kind of force organization the hustler's sect was, yet they were taking on a hostage rescue mission. All right. Old Huang quickly accepted because many forces actually carried out various whimsical and dazzling businesses to develop their forces. Of course, if the power was strong, there was more of ruling, plundering, and invading various worlds or forces. At least it proved Su Buxian wasn't idle and was truly developing the hustler's sex business. So, what's the situation? Which force was the kidnapped person from, and where are the kidnappers? What's their strength? Don't ask those useless questions. Su Qi laughed softly. Aren't those the most useful questions? The kidnappers are living in the Black Blood style apartment at your 3 o'clock direction, room number 3601. And the hustler's sect members, along with the client's forces, are gathered opposite the apartment, waiting for the signal to rescue at any time. So, the signal. Old Huang, worthy of Old Huang, immediately picked up on something. Isn't the signal us? Should I say you are really sharp? Su Qi gave a thumbs up in praise. Su Buxian, you rascal. Old Huang cursed. Leaving aside how strange being called sharp sounds, it turns out I hadn't even arrived, and they've already set a trap for me. So, you want us to act as bait, attracting those in the room to chase after us, and then others will rescue the person, right? Su Qi paused for some reason and said somewhat ambiguously, Close enough. Do we really need so many of us? Old Huang cursed again. After all, he had over 100 people with him. That apartment was large and eerie, but how many enemies could there be in just a room? Ah, well, the hustler's sect's first actionable business to gain fame needs to be taken seriously. Su Qi. All right, we're pressed for time. I'm soaking noodles here, and they won't be good later, so just let T0 knock on the door now. Old Huang sensed something was a bit off. Why send T0? Wouldn't it just be opening the door? It just doesn't look like a bad person. Oh? Old Huang increasingly felt something was off with Su Qi. But it wasn't a big issue either. If the enemies in just one room could stir things up, that would be too disgraceful. At this moment, T0 had already nodded and began heading towards the apartment. Old Huang and his team started to move in while also hiding their figures. Bai Yilan and Nancy were also waiting for Su Qi's signal. Is it really okay? The bearded man couldn't help but say. Trust Brother Su. Bai Yilan patted his shoulder. And we have all the hustlers' sect members here. Lin and others were also prepared, ready to act. The bearded man's expression remained heavy. But those people inside that apartment. Here it comes. Nancy suddenly said, "That figure, wearing the Hustler's sect totem." They viewed through the superpowered heavenly eye, seeing a figure heading toward the apartment. "Su Brother's signal is this." Bai Yilin nodded. "Get ready." Though Su Brother controlled from a distance, he seemed to know everything here like the back of his hand. Old Huang's side is responsible for being the bait, using diversion, while they are fully committed to rescuing. At the same moment, Su Qi also put aside his matters, and with his will descended upon T0 through the Holy Seal. Sect Leader. T0 had already arrived at the apartment entrance. Su Qi said calmly, "Go in. Only you can enter here. Remember to release the aura from within your body." T0 nodded, and the next moment, an aura of Abyss Blood Demon began swirling. Then it successfully stepped into the apartment. At this moment, the eyes from behind also turned their attention here. Old Huang's brows furrowed slightly. Something seemed off. This didn't seem like a public place, as there was an entrance ceremony fluctuation at the door. The wave from the ritual was very slight. It seemed that the entry of T0 had not triggered its alarm. This made it all the more unsettling. Old Huang frowned slightly. His vision was quite sharp. Even though the ritual's wave was minor, he caught it all in his sight, and there seemed to be a hint of danger and darkness within. More importantly, why was T0 able to enter? This was clearly Su Buxian's deliberate arrangement. T0's identity seemed not simple. When he first saw T0, he wondered what kind of existence this was, but he had no clues because T0 hardly ever revealed its true strength. Su Buxian, what exactly is? Old Huang was about to ask, after all, being a priest, if he didn't have some right to know, he would end up cursing. "Don't worry, you'll know soon enough." There was no one in the hallway outside the apartment, and soon, without any obstacles, T0 also reached the steps leading to 3601. And at this moment, with each step it took, its form began to change, from head to toe, gradually transforming into Su Buxian's appearance. This was a special skill that T0 possessed, the ability to change bodily appearance and state. Its blood demon gene was perfect, allowing every muscle to be under its conscious control, enabling transformations into the first, second, or even ultimate forms. All its abilities were based on the physical body, possessing infinite possibilities. This was the terrifying power of the perfect blood demon gene. And that bottle of blood serum in Su Buxian's hand contained even more powerful and extraordinary force. More specifically, it was the source of the blood demon power, as it was condensed from night demons formed by the blood demon power that Su Qi slaughtered throughout the entire city. With high purity and terrifying genes, even such an ancient relic couldn't be borne by those below sequence 6. And now T0. Why was it transforming into Su Qi's own appearance? It was, of course, arranged by Su Qi. T0 walked very slowly, the holy light mark on its body blinking slightly, as Su Qi's will was observing the surroundings. About 5 minutes later, T0 finally arrived at 3601. "Knock on the door." Su Qi's calm voice came from the other side. T0 nodded and unhesitatingly executed Su Qi's command. Meanwhile, Su Qi was also connecting Old Huang, Nancy, and Bai Yilin on the same channel. Though Old Huang was communicating through the holy light mark, if information could be transmitted, Xiaomeng could naturally also connect, albeit not as conveniently or quickly. "It's about to knock, so be ready." Once they open the door and chase out, Nancy, have the bearded man and the others use their superpowers to rescue people. Superpower users from the superpower dimension possessed this exceptional trait. Though physically weak, their focus on superpowers meant their abilities had high priority, often not limited by many rituals. Old Huang frowned lightly. "And us?" At this very moment, T0 had already reached out and knocked on the door. "Now you all just need to do one thing." Su Qi said lightly, "Listen to my subsequent commands." Old Huang raised an eyebrow. "Are you playing a real-time strategy game, hiding things like this?" Of course, it wasn't that Su Qi was deliberately withholding information, for Old Huang wasn't a fool, and he would overreact to the power of the abyss. To prevent him from having second thoughts, Su Qi naturally chose to conceal the truth. Moreover, there's another very important point. And the next moment, the door opened with a sound, and in the vast space inside, 10 individuals cloaked in black aura turned their gaze toward the T0 that knocked on the door. Strange. One of the venerables lifted their gaze with a cold stare, looking at the Su Buxian before them. I thought it was some other venerable, but it turns out it's not. Some venerables were slightly startled, suddenly turning their gaze toward the white-clad venerable. Eternal life venerable. It seems to be the person you have been searching for. This address, venerable, was enough to prove even among the venerables there existed stricter hierarchies of rank, and the one called Eternal Life Venerable was undoubtedly the most powerful among them. Among them, the white-coated venerable was standing atop a surgical table built from wooden tables at the moment, with a pile of abnormal body parts laid upon it. As for Duan, he'd been sealed in mouth and nose, tied to a chair on the other side. Though he wasn't injured, he looked very disheveled. The Eternal Life Venerable held a bloody scalpel. Looking at the door, Su Buxian, I hadn't hoped for much, but I didn't expect that you'd really be attracted here. He lifted his gaze, staring straight at Su Qi, revealing a terrifying expression. Su Buxian showed a slight smile, but the voice came out as well. Is there a need to go to such lengths, just because I disrupted a little action, and we only met once, yet you're searching for me like this? These were Su Qi's exact words conveyed through the holy light mark, and it had to be said that T0's imitation was flawless, except lacking some emotional subtleties. Su Qi was indeed speaking the truth, as the information he got from the bearded man revealed that the venerable had issued a bounty, even distributing it across various small and medium factions and lower-level believers searching for him. He. The Eternal Life Venerable also started to laugh, cold and eerie, pushing his bloodied glasses up with his gloved hand. When I captured him, he kept saying that you were unaware, and not to involve you. It seems you indeed do not know what you have done, what you possess. This sentence made Su Qi, who was viewing this from afar, pause slightly. What do I possess? This realization made his mind flood with countless thoughts in an instant. Duan was hiding the existence of the superpower dimension, and why the Abyss Venerable had targeted their world was key. Later, Duan and his group decided to venture into danger themselves to avoid bringing trouble to the members of the Hustlers sect, and then they encountered the Abyss Venerable right in front of them. The other was searching for him, not just out of resentment for his sabotage of its plans, but seemed also fixated on something important. It seemed very certain that the item was indeed on him. Could it be chaotic? Su Buxian muttered to himself. This matter indeed requires careful exploration, but for now, I'm here to rescue people. Why don't you give me the person, and whatever item you want, I'll give it to you. A bit underestimating me. The Eternal Life Venerable had already raised the scalpel, its cold gleam brimming with infinite murderous intent, accompanied by a sinister laugh. You seem to have no idea what place this is. You might as well stay. The very next moment, the disguised Su Buxian of T0 suddenly burst with astonishing strength, directly catching the fatal attack from behind. It was a long blade. The attacker was not someone from inside the room, but from the corridor outside. And at this moment, Lao Huang also began to hear Su Qi's voice. Full force blast. No hesitation, Lao Huang said coldly. Everyone attack with full force. The next moment, the power from Lao Huang, and all the members behind him from the Hustlers sect, exploded forth. Astonishing spiritual energy along with various extraordinary forces, charged directly towards the apartment. Lao Huang watched this scene without making a move. To be honest, he thought it was a bit of an overreaction. This group of people had originally been selected from countless worlds by the Trials of the Anxious Land as extremely strong potential users, and after receiving rewards from the Trials of the Anxious Land, they already possessed capital far surpassing others. Under his training, everyone's strength had undergone a qualitative leap. Now, the full force attack of 100 people had already generated terrifying waves. The entire apartment was shaken by this astounding power. Although there was some protection, yet spiritual energy, impacts had already overturned the previous calmness here. Then what? Lao Huang said calmly. Now what do we do? Clean up the battlefield or handle the enemies? After all, it was you who told them to go all out. If both hostages and enemies are wiped out together, don't blame me. Su Qi, you don't need to worry. All you need to do now is one thing. What? That's to follow the route I gave and escape with all your might. Lao Huang? Question mark. He suddenly felt a strong sense of unease, furrowing his brow. He raised his head and looked toward that apartment. At this very moment, his pupils shrank. The entire apartment, although oscillating somewhat, was just that. The most important thing was that the huge apartment outside was also unveiling the ceremony. That was the most terrifying, most bizarre, most evil abyss ceremony. And doors all over the apartment were slowly opening, with countless terrifying auras seeping out from the darkness within. What the hell is going on? Lao Huang's eyes widened. His body trembled. Su Buxian, speak. Su Qi paused for a moment. Did I forget to mention? The entire apartment is inhabited by abyss venerables. Su Buxian, damn you! Lao Huang suddenly turned around, roaring angrily, run! The next moment, members of the Hustlers sect also reacted, immediately turned around and quickly fled. And the Su Buxian formed by T0 also had directly separated from that ceremony. Following along towards Lao Huang, the Eternal Life Venerable watched this scene calmly, came prepared. But it's not important, because all the venerables in the entire apartment were its people. It let out a cold laugh, its hoarse voice spreading throughout the apartment to the venerables in the rooms. The superpower dimension, I promised you, it's he can be found on that Su Buxian. As long as you can get it, everything in the superpower dimension can bring tremendous value to the abyss. Now, you should know what to do. The abyss itself is incredibly vast. The number of venerables and heavenly destiny people is naturally comparable, and each of them harbors absolute ambition and absolute madness to become the pinnacle of the abyss. At this moment, Old Huang saw massive black clouds seemingly drifting over the top of the apartment, and in the next moment, numerous figures with expressions of indifference, profundity, and mocking laughter. Then, let's start the hunt. Old Huang cursed again, directly unleashed his strength to form a shield, and simultaneously fled with everyone. Su Buxian, damn you! You knew it all along, didn't you? They're all abyss venerables, you're insane. All right. Su Qi's calm voice came. I said, this is an important operation. If this business succeeds, it would be highly valuable. Old Huang's eyes widened. But you've provoked all the power of the abyss, and moreover, they're all venerables. It wasn't the first time he had warned Su Qi, and after not seeing him for so long, he brought him into something big as soon as they met. He knew Su Qi was restless, but he didn't expect him to provoke a bunch of venerables directly. Of course, Old Huang didn't know this was just the beginning. Attention! Don't run chaotically. Follow the route I gave you. Su Qi's calm voice continued to come. Follow orders. Old Huang cursed. What kind of route is this? Obviously, we should be moving away from this place towards the lower region, but you're now asking us to go deeper. This is the place where the power of the abyss is the most concentrated, and all the core personnel of the abyss are present, with power permeating the palaces. Now heading in this direction is like running into a trap. Don't rush. Over there, Su Qi was designing the appearance of the Hustler's shop, drawing design sketches while speaking with divided attention. Just follow my instructions, don't take the wrong route. If their attack is indeed lethal, Old Huang, you just need to explode. Oh! Old Huang cursed. Explode my ass! I've been hiding my identity, avoiding the power of the abyss, and you still want me to explode. All right, let's not talk. I have to keep an eye on things over there, so I'll leave this to you. Damn! Meanwhile, Nancy was also taking action. The Abyss Venerable's apartment had superpower energy infiltrating. Then, the people in the room haven't left, and the Eternal Life Venerable is also there. The bearded man said in a deep voice. But we only have one chance to fight. He suddenly paused. Mr. Nancy, brother Bai, why aren't you speaking? Nancy? Bai Yiling. What can they say? The entire apartment is full of venerables, and in that room is the boss of this apartment's venerables, extremely dangerous. We'll take care of it this time. The bearded man looked guiltily at Nancy and the others. We're already very grateful that you drew away many enemies. Leave it to us this time. A transport opened in front of them, and everyone unleashed various powerful ability fluctuations, superpowers acting as a mechanism to directly leave the spot. Frost and others. They just left like that? So what do we do? Nancy frowned. No, Su Buxian made a deal with these people, we can't stand by. He could roughly understand Su Buxian's arrangement, in essence, slowly taking the initiative until the opponent was step by step bound to the pirate ship. Now, it hasn't reached that point yet. We also need to get ready to take action. Nancy immediately and decisively spoke up. At this moment, Nancy and Bai Yilan received a diagram in their minds. Bai Yilan was stunned. What's this? Nancy's eyes suddenly trembled. The diagram of the ceremony's structure. Did Su Buxian send this? How could he have the diagram of this ceremony? This is an abyss ceremony, and such an illustration is a direct deconstruction. How on earth did Su Buxian achieve this? However, once the diagram appeared, he knew exactly what to do. It seems that what we need to do next is to destroy the ceremony here. At this moment, Nancy and the others began to take action. The operation wasn't too complicated, but it required a large number of people to simultaneously attack the key points of the structure, and they had to be swift. After all, the bearded man and his team had already gone. Moreover, there was an escape route next to Su Buxian's diagram, clearly prepared for them as well. However, the path did not lead to the lower city but rather to the upper city where the palace complex was located. Meanwhile, Su Qi wasn't overly concerned with that side. Since the forces were divided into two paths, aside from the overall coordination, the rest naturally had to be left for them to complete on their own. He believed every member of the Hustlers sect could perfectly conclude this first business venture. Even though a bunch of Abyss Venerables had been provoked, it wasn't a big issue, as it was a matter bound to happen sooner or later, and it was good for the Hustlers sect to acclimatize to it now. Especially old Huang, the reason he was guided step by step was precisely because of this. If informed in advance about participating in the war against the highest echelons of the Abyss, he might promptly file a resignation report and refuse to get involved. Anyway, the issue, as long as they follow his route, they'll soon meet the second client. Su Qi flashed a grin. Once they met, old Huang would have no chance to flee. Your smile is terrifying. Bei Xinxing shivered at Su Qi's smile. While managing various affairs in the Hustler Palace, he had come to understand how terrifying Su Buxian was. Each step was meticulously arranged with formidable contingencies and astonishing ambition. This guy wasn't aiming to merely establish a jurisdiction rich in points here, but was laying the groundwork for the future. After all, here every rule was forged under the strength of the World Tree. Even when taken away, they could retain their form, so Su Buxian was already arranging various rules to perfect this place. However, what they didn't know was Su Qi was conducting experiments. Since the old World Tree underground had withered, it didn't matter, as he still had an old World Tree seed, exploring and seeking a chance to provide unique sanctuary for the Hustlers sect's headquarters in a small world. Automating the shops, following the leisurely people sect's trading rules, absolutely prohibiting quarrels. All profession tasks have Hustlers sect hierarch exemption clauses, holding all interpretive rights. Bei Xinxing shook his head at the multitude of rules. Isn't the number of rules too great? Can Su Buxian really establish them all? First of all, a palace cannot endlessly establish rules. Otherwise, those controllers could craft countless rules to earn points from punishing others who breach them. Therefore, generally, when a palace is opened, it is gifted 10 top-line basic rules, and exceeding these requires the controller to pay with their own points. Su Buxian was the most unique, taking a different approach. Every rule had a vast amount of text, for this wasn't within the limitations. Rather, it allowed utilizing loopholes to discreetly add some supplementary clauses related to the rules. That fellow mastered rules to the extreme, achieving what neither the God's Palace nor the Abyss accomplished. You worry about this, Su Qi said gently. Just focus on implementing it now. Currently, Su Qi didn't need to visit each jurisdiction personally. He could quickly deliver Starfire Station one by one. These were rapidly mass-produced by Xiao Meng, swiftly occupying each shop. This was the first step. The Starfire Station not only swiftly facilitated product circulation but also had various connectivity functions, and most importantly, it could automatically gather surrounding information and embed Starfire chips into products. Additionally, there was another point. Since Su Qi emerged from the Singularity world, he realized the significance of the Starfire skill. At that time, he had already crafted the current plan to embed Starfire chips into every product. Therefore, back then, Su Qi had allocated a strand of spiritual power to automatically produce Starfire without hindering his routine tasks and battle. The amassed Starfire is now placed in the room of the Holy Light Corridor, endlessly produced by that strand of spiritual power, manifesting millions upon millions per second. Simultaneously, Xiao Meng utilized Heart of Divine Weapons, infinite energy and possibilities for assembly line creation, ceaselessly combining Starfire with particle chips for continuous output. Currently, it wholly supports the demand of the current jurisdiction. It has begun, Su Qi said softly, seeing all preparations almost complete. In the next moment, boom, 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 Su Qi's points massively diminished, and centering from the palace he was in, 10 enormous controlled jurisdictions from top to bottom started vibrating correspondingly. The transformation had begun. Although it required some time, such commotion surprisingly drew the attention of the entire World Tree Town. Is it that palace? From before. Now it's starting the jurisdiction. Can't determine which force it belongs to. What's your take? Adventurers discussed animatedly. Let's go see. As long as it's not a palace of the God's Palace or Abyss, the newly activated jurisdiction is bound to relax some rules to attract visitors. They can also obtain more points from it. Every jurisdiction has an entrance, and by looking at the totem and name above, you can tell what force it is. It must be another huge entity. Not only are they paying attention, there are also many divine sons and God's sons staring sharply at that palace. They see more than others. Could it be an anomaly caused by the God's Palace and the Abyss? Have other God's sons arrived first? That is probably a powerful opponent too. Brother Jiangji, have you received any news from Brother Su? At this moment, on the other side, Anan and Jiangji followed Qingqing, already joining up with the God Sons to try together with more than a dozen other divine sons, striving for a higher status to obtain the palace. Jiangji glanced at the other divine son's forces, shook his head, and said in a low voice, "No, Su Buxian seems to have vanished. Should we run away too?" Now, with the God Sons at the core, the Divine Sun Alliance has already gathered. The other Divine Sons each have their own forces, resources, and Taoist guardians. Only Anan and Jiangji feel out of place among them. No. Anan shook his head. This is the task Brother Su arranged for us. He mentioned many times before leaving that we must hold this ground. But Jiangji nervously exchanged looks, communicating with Anan through the Starfire channel. I'm afraid I can't handle it. All are divine sons. Speaking of ancient tales, legendary figures I've never heard of, dealing in billions of spirit coins and immortal-level equipment. Jiangji was on the verge of tears. I'm not worldly, just a small guy who'd ponder for 3 days over a 6-coin purchase, and the so-called glory of the hustlers sect. Brother, and you already know it's all a facade. And Nan? Indeed. He actually knew that the hustler sect was just a small force with very few people. However, Brother Su is not a facade. He possesses boundless potential energy. And Nan said softly, "Believe in him." Jiangji. Why did he suddenly feel ashamed? He was an early member of the sect, yet he didn't have as much faith in Su Buxian as Anan did. What kind of enchanting spell did Su Buxian put on him? All right then. Jiang Ji sighed, looking towards the distant palace where anomalies appeared. It seems some god's sons have succeeded, and everyone's about to speed up. How will it end? Has Su Buxian really thought it through? At this moment, on the street beneath the vast palace group, the Abyss Venerables arrived like some eerie presence, overlooking Old Huang and his group. Their figures emanated cold darkness. The terrifying spiritual force came with massive waves of dark energy. All around, on the faces of every person including top forces, undisguised fear appeared, and they quickly retreated. So many venerables? Who are they pursuing? Heavenly Destiny people? Doesn't seem like it. That group can still resist. Stop looking. Don't provoke the abyss. Some people watched with interest, while others kept their distance. The Abyss Venerables, backed by the Abyss, are an insurmountable terror for other adventurers. Like a chasm that low sequence cannot cross, they are as insignificant as ants. They really can run, huh? This group is not that simple. Boom, boom, boom. The Venerables unleash their abilities, using spiritual energy to launch powerful attacks. Their moves sharp and fierce, like hunters controlling the fate of all lives. Damn! Under such pressure, Old Huang and his group could only keep dodging and defending without counterattacking. Damn it! With these Venerables here, how can I unleash myself? Old Huang was already cursing internally. Although he could fight back, doing so would surely expose his hidden strength. And each Venerable bears the totem of the Abyss. The assault of the Abyss Venerables was like a mighty mountain and sea. As if a gigantic beast of the world were raging, the Hustlers' members could only unleash their full power, resisting while escaping. Boom, boom, boom. There's no denying the power of each Venerable is incredibly impressive, comparable to a divine sun. Their various strong sequence abilities press down like dark clouds. The entire street, despite rules protecting it, was shaken up with rubble. Everyone felt the terror of the Abyss Venerables' power, as if facing an insurmountable blood sea. Those guys can really run, they're still unscathed. Powerful spiritual energy stirred up wave after wave. The Hustlers' sect members felt absolute danger under the terrifying power of the Abyss Venerables. The abyssal spiritual energy of the Abyss Venerables was like an evil force, bringing terrifying destruction and devastation. Someone couldn't help but look up. Priest. It turns out the outside world is so dangerous. We thought we were strong, but now we can only run away. Someone lowered their head in sorrow. Old Huang, why are you feeling so ashamed? Understand the situation, will you? Do you think those chasing you are turnips or cabbages? They're all Abyss Venerables. We're not strong enough. We must try harder. Oh? It's all Su Buxian's fault. He sighed heavily in his heart. Can't blame them, since most of the people present were actually ordinary people from the native world selected into the anxious land, and they simply don't understand the present world. Boom, boom, boom. The power of the Abyss Venerables erupted as if it would destroy everything. Their strength was exceedingly formidable, and everyone could only resist and flee before them. The sequence ability of the Abyss Venerables demonstrated unparalleled power, each attack making countless people around tremble with fear. Do you really think you can escape? Maybe now it's time to end all this. They gathered a terrifying and powerful black energy on their bodies. Like an abyss, it captivated the mind and caused unease. Spiritual energy formed spells that flashed in the sky. Various screeching ghost shadows emerged. Struggling power materialized into substantial form, coalescing into massive blood shadows, filled with a chilling gleam of the bone-cutting knife, loaded with murderous aura of the murder axe. Countless black shadows were everywhere. The terrifying spiritual energy of the Abyss Venerables came crashing down. The entire sky dome was filled with chaotic and ghastly, terrifying atmosphere. The attack of the Abyss Venerables bore twisted ghost shadows. Countless abyssal breaths burst forth, emanating soul-chilling terror. Damn! Old Huang looked at this scene and coldly laughed. They really treat me like an easy target. Aren't they just little guys from the abyss? Really treating themselves and the people I brought as ants? Moreover, he glanced at the roadmap. The end of the escape route was near, although he didn't know what would happen when they reached it, but now. It was his turn to act. Old Huang grinned viciously, regardless of the fact that the place was notably sparse in population. If he burst forth in an instant, at least for a short time. Suddenly, Old Huang's body trembled. Wait, something's wrong. Something's not right. His momentum just now felt like it had been doused with a bucket of water, extinguishing instantly. Here, Old Huang looked to both sides. On one side was a palace group enveloped in absolute holy light, with a white ritual covering everything. On the other was a black palace with terrifying energy, extremely unsettling abyssal powers permeating within. No wonder. The place suddenly had few people here. Turns out, crap, it's where the God's Palace and the Abyss Palace group are located. Su Buxian, what kind of route did you draw? He suddenly felt numerous terrifying gazes fixated on him. Old Huang's body trembled. How could he dare to reveal his power now? Could it be that Su Buxian thinks he is a threat because of his great achievements, wanting to get rid of him? And at this moment, boom! It was as if the sound of a great bell rang in everyone's ears. Old Huang's eyebrows jumped once more. Why does this sound seem so familiar?